What's going on, everybody? I am Bird Dog John. Thanks for joining us today, and we are going to kick things off here. It is 1 a.m. in Melbourne right now, and that is exactly where I am. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Robbie to the show. What's going on, man? All right, let's see. Hey, what's going on, Judson?
Hey, thanks for having me.
I do much more. We are joined with Bird Dog Ian, who is at the Capture Summit over in Atlanta. So how's it going, man?
Hot and sweaty.
That's the most important question that our team can ask. Why are you needing this camera?
Now, I haven't tested this thing since it got here. This is something that I'm really excited that NDI did. That's cool. Obviously, there are lots of flavors here, but this is the 4250 line. And our little friend here. Say hello to my little friend. It's brewing in the back of my throat. Based on the recommendation of Senseless, we're going to give a Java Monster a try.
Oh, yeah, Pocky,
We
dude.
got a little Pocky, and
Yes.
I have been putting this off for an age.
Oh, I'm so excited for you.
There is a Snacks on Stream mystery box brought to you by my Snacks on Stream manager, Break. What's going on, Bugsy?
There you go. What's going on?
Balu, good to see you, man. What's going on, NetHab? Hey, what's going on, Judson? And hey, Kevin, good to see you, man. What's going on, Jeremy? How are you? Thanks for jumping on. Oh, it's all good. Yep. It's that time again, everybody, and we are getting underway here on the show. I might as well take down the starting screen. Hope you're doing well. Hey, I am Bird Dog John. Hopefully things are going well. It has been a busy week. I'm just going to mute the TV that I'm watching my output from. There we go. Okay, that's a little better. What's happening? Yeah, today that's been a busy week over here. Yesterday I was like running around like crazy, just like doing all sorts of stuff. So that was fun. But yeah, it's been a busy week. I am gonna just check my audio real quick. There we go. Okay. So yeah, we've been busy since you've seen me last, and today we are going to spend a little bit of time watching a webinar, which I haven't seen yet, by the way. That was broadcast at like the middle of the night. So me being a big dummy, I saw the announcement and it said, New Tech and Panasonic are going to do a webinar with NDI.TV. And it said starting at like 11 o'clock, what I thought was CT, Central Time, but turns out it's Central Europe time. And so that's like 3 a.m. in the morning over here in Michigan. So it's already happened. However, it's on YouTube. And so, we're gonna throw that up there. We can basically watch it anytime we want, and we're gonna watch through that here in a few minutes. But first, I need to jump over to the comment section because you guys are lighting it up. Daniel is first. It's true. He was first. He was here. That comment came in 8 minutes before the show started. So, well done. Thanks for hanging out. Of course, Go Web is here like normal. It's good to see you, man. Thanks for jumping on today. Senseless says, "Hey, it's John." He doesn't say hey. He just says it's John. So Senseless is around answering tickets and training all the new ticketing agents. That's pretty fun. He's been busy too. Good to see you without a cap on. Yes, I do have hair. It does exist. Sometimes I wear it. Most of the time. Sometimes I don't wear a hat, but most of the time I do. It's just generally as it goes, I guess. And I was going to wear headphones today. I've been trying to figure out how to like show a YouTube video and route it through vMix so that you guys can hear the audio and I can talk over it, but I can also hear it. It's kind of been a mess. So we'll do some shenanigans, and with any luck, we won't have double audio, but we'll have to find out, I guess. I don't know. So we'll see. I was definitely thrown off by that. Yes. And no glasses. So no glasses, no hat, and no hoodie. Man, I'm really really throwing some curveballs at you guys today. So yeah, totally different. Audio, video, all okay. Excellent. Thank you, Go Web. Appreciate that. And what's going on, Balu? Balu's super excited to be at work today. I think. I don't quite know. I'm not too sure what all the emojis mean, but hey, I'm happy you're here too. So yeah, hopefully you guys are doing well. We have, like I said, had a busy week. I've actually been playing around a fair bit with Central Plus, so the new Central 2.0 platform that we have out, which is it's a service that runs now. It's not an executable, but the beautiful thing is that you can access it on any web browser on your network, on your single subnet NDI network. And so I'm actually really anxious to hear what NewTek, what NDI, what Panasonic, what Netgear says about networking. I think they're going to talk about it from what I can gather from they're talking about NDI workflows and they have a networking company there. So I'm really hoping they talk about how they prefer to set things up. I'd love to contrast that. And hopefully we can watch that a bit. The video itself is a grand total of 1 hour. So we'll definitely run into the 12 o'clock hour today, but it's a grand total of 1 hour. And then I think they do some QA stuff. So I don't know. Maybe we'll watch that. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And if it's totally like a giant waste of time, then we'll call it and cut it off early. But anyways, that's that's where I'm at. On my iPad, I feel like on this screen, it's not like the P200 isn't like super bright. And on my confidence monitor, it's not super bright. But on my iPad, I'm like glowing. And I don't know if that's just because, I got my I definitely have the brightness turned up. That didn't really seem to help it very much. So let's do something here. Let's fix that real quick because I feel like I'm blown out. Let me just see here. Let me see if I can just adjust the exposure on this P200 real quick because then I'll feel better about that. So we'll jump over into the web UI. I'm just going to go to cam control and hit exposure and just knock it down a notch. Does that do anything? Let's see. See what happens on my iPad. There's a delay, right? So that's a little better, but it's still like super blown out. Up to 100. Whoa. that's not right. Okay, so I'm going to chop it up to my iPad. I'm going to return these things to original values now. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, look at that. Anyways, and I'm just going to jump over to YouTube on my computer and view that screen and make sure it just looks the same there. And it's kind of bright. I'm not too sure about that. Anyway, I don't know about that. What to do? So this was set to 60 and this was set to 3.6 on the gain. Seems about right. I mean, if I cut between shots, I guess it's kind of, I'll watch it, I guess, on my iPad and see what happens here, but it looks a little bit, it's just like super bright for me. I've never actually watched it. Original did look the best. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there then. That's where I was. I don't know. Maybe it's my iPad. I think it's my iPad. It's like it's an OLED display, I believe, and it looks a little bit different that way. So maybe I shouldn't rely on that. I don't know. Whatever. But that's not the purpose of today's show. Today's show is supposed to be about watching this webinar. So we'll get after that. Let me jump back to the comments real quick. I'll be receiving a Bird Dog Play tomorrow. Excellent. That's what I'm running my little confidence monitor on, actually. And it takes a vMix output and displays it up on there on a halfway decent screen. So that's working pretty well. Bali says, never let me know what you're going to do. I mean, well, whatever. I went and watched the whole interview after you'd finished. Lots of stuff in there. I took notes. Wow. From a level standpoint, your exposure looked perfect or normal. It did lower it, but I think it's a bit under now. The original did look best. Okay, well, good to know. See, I'll crowdsource. Actually, the other thing, so the piece that I've been trying to like balance today is how to get the audio from YouTube into vMix so I can pipe it over to StreamYard. So I think I have it sorted out where you're not going to hear double. I was listening to the NDI feed like in the office from vMix, so I think we're good. But I'm going to have to switch so that I can hear it. Oh, I don't know if that's true. So that I can hear it, I may have to switch headphone jacks, but it's all good. We'll sort that out. Right now I'm plugged directly into the Mac. But I think to listen to it, I'm going to need to be plugged into this computer. So whatever, I'll sort that out. That's my problems. I said that wrong. Facepalm. Never let them know what you're going to do. Oh, yeah. So the funny thing was that I definitely was planning on, I thought this was going to be at the 12 o'clock hour, this webinar. Thought they were hosting it in the US, but it's definitely all like European time zones. And so I clicked on it to like load the web page, and it was like, this webinar is done. And I was like, wait, what? So then I got looking, and I was like, oh, CET, that's different. It's like 5 in the afternoon over there right now. So whoops-a-daisy. Audio cables. Yeah, so we'll swap things around here so I can hear the video and provide some commentary over it. I think that's the plan. Yeah, I guess the other way to do it would have been to like share a tab on here in StreamYard and stream. Ooh, that would have been a good idea. And done it like after the fact. That probably would have been easier. Oh, well, lessons learned. Next time, everybody, next time. So, yeah, we're going to do that. And they do kind of like a StreamYard roundtable. I don't know if it's Zoom or if it's StreamYard or what it is they're using, but probably Zoom. And they do a bit of a roundtable with a handful of people that are on. So yeah, it'll be interesting to listen to their opinions on this stuff and see what they say and see where I and you come to the table on this conversation, because we'll do it live. Yeah. Anyways, I'll definitely we'll still watch it. I haven't watched it. I only watched the first like 2 minutes to get an actual like audio check. So yeah, we'll see what they say. We'll see what they come up with on this webinar. And maybe it'd be a giant waste of time. Maybe we'll find it super beneficial. You never know. That's good. That's good cold water. I've already drank my half a pot of coffee this morning. I did that before I came into work, and so now I'm on to the water. So we'll probably get through that bottle this show. And I don't have any snacks today either. So my Snacks on Stream Manager is off on vacation for a few days. And so we haven't done that, but we've had 2 very specific shows, so we haven't really been doing Snacks on Stream. But that will probably return next week. No worries. All right, let's. If you have any questions about the new Central, by the way, I'd be happy to field those for you, because I've been kind of playing around with it. The generator. So there's like a new generator thing. So Central 2.0 is in beta right now, and there's a new generator option where you can use it to upload media files so that you can play them as NDI sources on your network. It's kind of a cool idea. And I can totally see like ad loops like running around a campus, and that generating the source, and that being the fallback NDI source. So when you go live with the show, all the screens switch to the show, and then when you're done with the show and that NDI feed disappears on your network, it falls back to the ad loop. I see that as a very practical reason to have this sort of option, but also the sky's the limit when it comes to what it is that you might use that for. And of course, we have these conceptions as to how people are going to use our products, but people surprise us. That's for sure. They come up with all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty cool what guys are doing in the field. Do we have snacks? There are snacks in the pantry out there, but not anything uniquely that we've purchased or set up for this show. So we'll shoot for Tuesday. That's for sure. What's going on, Jeremy? How are you, man? Welcome back to the show. Daniel's excited you're here too. That last show looked great. Just didn't have time to stick around. It was great. It was a great little chat that we had with a handful of people in the industry that we do business with. So these are guys that do Bird Dog, but are not necessarily exclusive NDI or Bird Dog for that matter. But guys like Glenn, Mike, I mean, these are guys that are doing installs and talking with clients on a regular basis and finding solutions for problems that customers have, or helping to formulate, customers' dreams too. So it's pretty cool to get to actually sit down and chat with them. I'm going to try and set up a time where I can have them back more on an individual basis, with maybe 1 or 2 of them at a time, because I'd like to give them more time to talk. Having a group of 6 of us on here was great, and it meant no one was really pressured to carry the conversation, but I think all of them could have. And we've had Tom on before, and I'll have Tom on anytime he comes around. If he wants to have a chat or if he wants me to go to his channel, absolutely. So I've had Tom on already, and him and I can chat for hours, man. And then the other guys that I had on the show, some of them I had just met over email, and I hadn't actually sat down and talked to them. We certainly didn't. Maybe you could tell we didn't do a whole lot of prep for the show. We had a small pre-show between the six of us and just explaining the flow of the show, what questions, like what categories of questions I was going to ask. And I just let them go. Like when they had something to say, let them go and say it, right? So we filled an hour quickly. And I think that each of those guys definitely could fill another hour just talking between the two of us or having three people on. And so maybe I need to have like a second personality join me, like another bird dog personality, or where like we can even if it's somebody else in the industry, but have two of us and a guest, and we can kind of have questions and ask questions and from our vantage point in the industry. So I think that format might work. That might be worth it might be worth digging a little bit, see if there's something there. Hey, what's up, Daniel? Jeremy says. GoWeb says cam control doesn't pull the settings from the camera if I restart the camera. Is that the case? This chair. So whatever the thing is on this chair, it's not good. And the guys didn't want to use it for that purpose because it loses its like compression or whatever. I just got to buy a new one and swap it out. But yeah, good stuff. Thanks. The show will never be boring. Something will always happen where it messes up my show. Cam control doesn't pull the settings from the camera if I restart the camera. That might be correct. I don't know I don't think cam control is using sockets, and so I don't think that it necessarily pulls that live data immediately. So I think the idea with cam control is that you have cameras and you pull up cam control and then you start setting the settings, and then that becomes the primary controller. However, I could be wrong. I thought we tried to get it to where it would reflect the active settings. I'll have to ask engineering about that, because it seems like that would be a highly desired case like thing, but I'm not too sure. Pandorica, what's going on? Welcome back. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you again. The one thing I was wondering about the digital signage usage, is multicast guaranteed, or is there just a ridiculous network backbone in that assumption? You mean, is multicast guaranteed on a play? That's a great question. As a matter of fact, I can verify that for you right now, because I can't remember if I put this. So multicast should be an option. Certainly will be, if not in the future. So let me just pull this up. I am running in multicast. So multicast is working. I use this every show. I'm using the play to show a multi-viewer out of vMix, and that is set to multicast. So there you go. So multicast, the question should be, is multicast assumed when doing digital signage, right? I think it is, to be honest with you, because you're going to get way outside your networking britches the moment that you start putting up these on multiple screens in the hallways of your institution or however you're doing signage. If you just have like one or two, TCP would be fine. But I think when you get outside of that, it's a total waste of bandwidth. And so you might as well plan for multicast if you're using play in a signage situation. That one's for free, folks. That was you got more than the price of admission this morning on that. So what's going on, MTash? Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming back. Okay, so this webinar is an hour, and so I'm going to get this thing started, I think. So let's cut over to that, and or nice fade. Ooh. And I'm down here in the corner now. So here's hoping that this works. You guys can still hear me, right? You can still hear. Whoa, my multi-viewer just froze. That was weird. I think it's the screen capture that's causing it to do that. But anyways, so this is that webinar, and everybody in the comments, I'm going to take my name tag away. I'm hiding behind my name bubble. I never think of that when that happens, but before we get started here, this NetHab multicast shifts the resource load from the encoder camera to the network switch. That is why you need a quality managed switch in order to guarantee the signal gets to everyone. You need to listen to NetHab. He knows what he's talking about. Hey, we can hear you. You might want to turn off your lower third. Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, and then tell me if you can hear this webinar. Oh, now it's going to buffer. Fantastic.
Hello, a very warm welcome to
Okay,
this
can you hear
NDI
that?
webinar. My name is Renato. I'm the host and producer at NDI.tv, and I'll be your host for the next 40 to 50 minutes. Today's topic is getting your NDI workflows ready with Panasonic and Netgear.
Uh-oh.
And joining us today is
I
our
can't hear it
very
yet.
own NDI
Frink says
guru,
yes.
Roberto Musso, a certification
thinks.
project manager from NDI.
Okay, so I'm going to switch headphones now because
in the latest
might as well just have
NDI
two separate headphones for
5.5
this show.
update. And then we'll be hearing from Mads Bolding, a sales engineer and PTZ
All right, is that loud enough?
specialist with
You guys
Panasonic.
you're comfortable?
We'll
Can
be
you hear
talking
me
about
over
the
them?
Panasonic
Because that's
PTZ
most important.
ecosystem. Following Mads, we'll hear from Richard Jonker, Vice President of Business
Just a little louder?
for
Who needs to be a
Netgear,
little louder?
and he'll be talking
Them
about
or me?
how to deploy NDI in the best and easiest possible way with Netgear, of course.
You are louder.
Finally, we'll have a Q&A session where you'll be able to ask all your questions to any of our
How
three
about,
panelists. Just type them into the chat below
How about
into the
that? Is that any
presentation.
better?
And as we'll do our
Yes,
best
I
to
know
answer
I'm
them
louder
as
than them.
many as we can in the time that we have available.
I don't want to be at the same level
So,
as them. I want to
Let's
overpower
get
them when I
started
need to
with
tell you something.
Roberto. Prego.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. And I'm very pleased to be here. It's
Okay.
very exciting.
I'm getting
We've been working
getting a
with
that's good
Netgear and,
thumbs up from
and
various
Panasonic
texts
for
and
many
such.
years.
Whoa.
And is a real
What's going on
pleasure.
there? Why are
So
people disappearing from the show?
show you what we have done with NDI 5 and then with
Okay, real quick. So this guy is one of the main architects for NDI. He's from the beginning. And this is the guy that was on Global Office Hours about 3 weeks ago. And this is the guy that said, the beautiful thing about NDI is you can just put it on the on any network.
NDI 5.5 in the last 2 years. Yes, I mean, NDI is the unstoppable stream, the future.
Here, I'll jump into vMix and
because
my
for
face,
us,
or put my face on the other
NDI
side.
is our video over IP and audio over IP technology. So in 2021, we released NDI 5.
Yoink.
And with the 5 version of the NDI tools, we
where did all the guests
introduced new
go?
technology and new tools. One of the main important feature, I would say, is reliable UDP. Reliable UDP is a technology that is helping user to simplify the network. I mean, the NDI usage and the network infrastructure. This has been probably the biggest step forward for NDI. Then we made a lot of improvement. For example, improvement in Discovery Server. We enable network interface selection and some more tools. For example, we introduced NDI Audio Direct, which is I
don't know who's running the show over there.
An NDI VST3 plugin that enable audio workflow with NDI.
Oh, yeah, it definitely might have been
And then we
WebEx.
introduced NDI Bridge. NDI Bridge is a fantastic tool that allow user to share over internet, over a wide area network, multiple NDI source. Is bidirectional support every NDI capability. For example, is support multi-channel audio, bidirectional metadata, PTZ control, KDM is a very important tool. And then we introduce NDI remote. application in the middle.
Okay, so that dinging
the
noise you're hearing
manager
is me
basically
switching
the
my
cross
keyboard
point
between the two
of
computers. Sorry
NDI
about that.
signal.
I'll try and do that less.
To 4
Oh
simultaneous
crap! Sorry,
source.
everybody. My bad. My bad.
And we add
Here,
a
let
very
me back
important
that up.
feature
Let me back
in
that up.
NDI Audio Direct, where
Boy,
now it's
this
possible
is a
to
mess.
configure
Okay, hang on one second.
workflow. So every user now can create a complex routing just using a single application. With NDI router, I don't need anymore to, for example, to select and receive and decide to receive a source on the receiver side, but I can have this application in the middle that manages basically the cross point of NDI signal. And then we introduce NDI Remote 2 with the tollback function and screen capture. And this is very important. I mean, this is a very big update in NDI webcam where we can use now up to 4 simultaneous sources.
Yeah,
and
I'm using that right now.
We add a very important feature in NDI Audio Direct where now it's possible to configure audio level both as a source or as an output. Another very important feature that is probably, I mean, not really visible, but is really important. So you can define which kind of application part of the NDI tools will be launched on system startup. For example, this is very important for cloud deployment because, I mean, every time I run a cloud machine, I can set up the auto start of webcam screen capture with KVM, NDI bridge, or Studio Monitor, or the NDI router. Then we introduce a new plugin for Unreal Engine with cross-platform support and support for Unreal Engine 5. And this is very important, a new end-user registration. Why is important? Because with this new registration, we allow third party to pre-install NDI tools in a computer. And this is, again, has been a big request for cloud deployment. So a third-party organization can pre-install NDI tools, and then the end user perform the registration. This is another interesting tool that is part of the SD.
Okay, just real quick, I hate it. Sales guys, if you're watching this, I hate it when guys make slides and then they read them to you. Don't do that. Don't insult my intelligence by reading the words to me.
SDK,
It's not
NDI
necessary.
Free Audio. NDI Free Audio is a very small application that exists for many different platforms, for Windows, for Linux. So with NDI Free Audio, you can use any kind of computer, for example, a Raspberry Pi. If you connect an audio sound card to a Raspberry Pi, then you can run this application and make this small computer as a NDI Audio I/O.
That's interesting.
And we enable SDK improvement. For example, with the advanced SDK, we allow to specify NDI quality. We improve MDNS and discovery support, and we add FPGA decoding with the advanced SDK. I think is all for now.
Ooh, FPGA decoding now supports alpha channel.
As you can see, we are actively working improving NDI.
Improved MDNS and discovery support.
More new improvement will come, and we'll keep you updated on that. Thank you.
Is that it? Oh,
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much for that, Roberto. So now we'll be moving to our presentations from Mads and Richard. So take it away.
was he asleep? That was great.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mads, and I'm the sales engineer, project manager, and PDZ specialist with Panasonic Europe. So today I'm going to talk about the Panasonic PDZ ecosystem. We already sold over 200,000 units globally, so we tend to call ourselves the PDZ architect. We do that because we have a wide range.
Going to you, host. Aren't you controlling the show?
Free software, auto
Come on, man. Oh, everybody, eyes up front, eyes up front.
Paint panels, control panels, and 4K switches. On our website, you don't just have a list of products. You can actually go on a safari yourself to explore our products. It's a great way of seeing new things that you haven't seen before and see what is needed in a studio to make everything work.
Hey, there's that controller.
And I also think it's a very
that controller we had in the office that we really couldn't figure out how to use. We read the manual.
Going on and
we like
maybe
had a Panasonic camera and a Panasonic controller. We're like, cool.
Please go and have a look
no,
for yourself.
Never mind. Don't know how to use this thing. Can't figure it out. There's no like add camera button or
the current PDZ lineup.
Anyway,
Panasonic. So we have entry models ranging all the way up to specialist models. And of course, as you see, NDI and NDI-HX is of course supported in most of our models. We lately introduced a new camera called the UE160, and that is the one I want to talk about today. So let's have a look at some of the features. So we have a wide-angle lens with 20 times zoom. We have a brand new sensor with extremely high sensitivity. We have a new focus system, which is a combination of face detection autofocus and contrast autofocus. We have a Moray with
face detection
for LED wall shooting, and we are the first PDZ ever to support SMPTE 2110. We have full bandwidth NDI in 4K 60p, of course. And then we have support for a 5G USB dongle for remote production. We are also the first camera to support 120 frames of high-speed output in 1080p. Then we have a waveform monitor, level gauge to support you for doing setup. So let's have a look at some of the features here. So the high image quality to capture subjects even in the dark is very important. And now you can use this camera for doing video in theaters, musical concerts, and even in conferences when zooming in a lot and you need a lot of light.
Whoops. Sorry.
The new autofocus system is a combination of face detection autofocus and contrast autofocus to provide fast, accurate, and less confused autofocus. So instead of going back and forth to find the right point, it knows the distance and goes to that point immediately. And the user interface also displays the direction of the focus when in manual mode, so it's easier to use. If the 20 times zoom is not enough, you can also use the cropping function. So here in this instance, we have a situation with this interview.
Oh, so this is So this is the Mevo technology, right? So this is what Mevo does, where they have like a 4K sensor, and then they draw boxes around like the subject, and they do the auto cropping, and then you can select between those sources.
Frames.
So you'll see at the bottom it says 4K or HD, and then HD is the zoomed in. I mean, it's a nice little party trick because it means that you can have one lens that does multiple shots.
To sum it up, some of the other features, we have a high-speed output, we have the built-in optical low-pass filter, we have image stabilization, we have a horizontal level gauge display. Scene files can be copied from one camera to the other, so you have the same settings on all the cameras. And of course, as I said, we have the waveform display. We also feature large tally lamps, both front and rear. So it's
look at that. Front and rear tally lamps on this new camera.
If you're working with SMPTE 2110, you also have the possibility of sending a return video feed. So the footage is sent back from the switcher to the camera so that the cast can check the final footage. In this situation here, this weathercast man looking at the screen for seeing what he's doing on the green screen. During COVID, we had to explore new ways of showing our camera products when we couldn't travel around and shipping them around to the customers. So we decided to build a virtual demo room. We hung up all the cameras. We built a little studio with a table, bar, some lights and jukebox, some bottles, and then suddenly we had a stage. So now you can go in and book a session. You can choose a camera to look at, and then you can go full screen to see what is going on in the picture. And you are able to choose between different presets to maneuver the camera. You're also able to zoom in, use the focus, the iris, the white balance, and you can even dim the lights in the room or change the lights temperature. You can also shut them off completely if you want to check out the sensitivity of the different cameras. And if you want to check out the different viewing angles of the different camera models, you can also do that, as well as checking out how far the zoom goes. So this is a very nice way to check out
It's a good sales tool
in our lineup to see how they perform. So please have a look at that yourself. We can also do a guided tour where we will guide the customers through the various software that we have, the auto tracking system, and so on. So that was what I wanted to share with you today. So thank you very much for listening.
So that's their top tier brand new camera, all the things that it can do. Very interesting.
Hi, this is Richard with Netgear. And today we would like to talk about how to deploy NDI in the best and easiest possible way.
Here we go.
With Netgear. Welcome.
I'm ready.
We built AV over IP switches. Why did we do that? Because, well, AV is one planet and IT is the other planet. And people from AV don't speak IT language and the other way around. While people in the AV world talk about protocols like NDI. People on the IT side talk about IP addresses and multicast and Ethernet cables and IGMP. And to use AV over IP on an IT switch, well, it requires that you know a little bit of both worlds. And that's what we're trying to do. So we've built products for the AV over IP deployments using IT knowledge in the back, but applying learnings from the AV world so that AV people can use these switches and deploy them without having to understand all the IT speak, just by using AV technology learnings. And I'll show you how that works. We've worked with over 180 manufacturers in the AV over IP space, including NewTek, NDI, and Panasonic, and others, to really fine-tune our products.
Boland is on there too.
With the applications in broadcast or commercial AV where NDI is often used. For that, we have completely changed the look and feel of our switches, because, well, IT switches, you know them, they sit in a data center, they're loud, they work as a blow dryer for your hair, as well as a patch system for all kind of cables, right? That's how it looks. They don't have the look and feel usually of a nice AV deployment. So here we did it differently with the AV line M42 line of switches. We put the connectors at the back, but indicators, LEDs on the front. So while your cables are neatly hidden behind the rack, you still have your indicators in front of you. So that nicely integrates with an AV setup, whether that's commercial or residential or in broadcast. We have a wide range of products. In the M4250 series alone are now 13 different switches, all the way from 8 ports PoE, 125 watts, up to a 2U high rack product for 32 times 90 watts PoE++. You can pick those products either with 1 gig uplink or 10 gig uplinks, depending on the need and the amount of endpoints in your network. This all results then in a clean integration, depending on the size. This could be as small as a desktop, let's say 25 centimeters wide set of products, or a full rack with equipment for thousands of endpoints. We can do it all. So with NDI, there's something specific. NDI is a network device interface and basically helps you to transport audio and video coming from a source to a destination over the network. Underlying are a lot of concepts that you shouldn't be dealing with. We should solve that for you. We've done that. This is the result of a test.
Cheers, Netgear.
With Roberto with NewTek last year, where we compared running NDI4 and NDI5 over a network in one VLAN, and then we found out when does it work well, when doesn't it work well. And we continue to do these tests to make sure that our switches are preset for the right flavors, which means if you go to NDI5, you would pick the NDI5 protocol in the switch, and all settings are good, including things like flow control and jumbo frames and all those things you don't want to deal with. We handle this, and we continually test it with multiple manufacturers, including Panasonic, to make sure that our network switch works as the best possible NDI solution. We have a lot of training material online how to configure, for example, NDI5 on our switches. Here's my colleague John Henkel from San Jose, California, talking you through the interface of the M4250 switch and helping you to deploy NDI in the best possible way. And maybe you just don't want to handle NDI. You may want to handle an audio source as well. For example, Dante, or you want to have NDI, but you want to break out Dante and do something else with it. Dante is an audio protocol that deserves to be treated in its own way and doesn't always play nice with other protocols.
So, by the way, if you're interested, there is an interview between me and John Henkel at NAB over on the Bird Dog YouTube site from NAB this year. So that was a good little chat with him.
So Netgear helps you put Dante on a separate VLAN, for example, and make sure that the traffic.
But for the record, he is more on the sales sides of things, as I understand. Like you'll notice in the conversation, because I was like going to get into the meat of the situation with him, and he was more on the what we can do right now, and not so much as to like these settings, this thing, this button. It wasn't that level of a conversation. So, but John's a great guy, and he's helping champion the Netgear switches for the AV industry. So if you ever see him or whatever, he's one of the guys worth knowing at that company.
Traffic flows there where it has to go. Not only do we have training videos, we have our own pro AV design team that is always available for a personal consultation. And this can be a pre-sales meeting where you just want to talk about how you want to deploy NDI, and they can advise you on how to set it up. Or you want help with the setup, or you want to talk about an upgrade of an existing deployment. We are here to help. Another course we do, actually our most famous one, is Top 10 Tips for AV over IP Network Design. Is the result of all the consultations we had for tens of thousands of AV over IP networks, and the 10 most important pitfalls that you have when designing such a network. Let me talk you through. Most important is pick AV over IP capable switches that are able to do multicast, that are able to do the things you want from an AV over IP network, which means you separate audio, video, control, and data, which means a managed switch, also one that is capable of handling the specific needs of NDI, if you do this in multicast, for example, and also the speed it needs to have in terms of compute, as well as the...
Tip number 7, QoS is not magic.
connection speed with other switches. Get trained on network design. Find out what the requirements are, which is counting the inputs, the outputs, the sources, and the targets, and then do the math on the total required networking speeds. Organize.
There is not a point on this list that I disagree with.
Your audio, video, and VLANs. Remember, ports are full duplex. That means 1 gigabit in and 1 gigabit out can happen at the same time. It's not like HDMI where you pick one and then the other.
Okay, and remember, that's peak performance. 1 gig transmit, 1 gig receive. Peak performance.
Ethernet port can do both at the same time. Quality of service was a thing 15 years ago, not really something to worry about. We handle that easily now with our modern silicon. Designed for scale, not for today, but also for tomorrow. Create a dedicated AV network. Don't mix AV over IP with data and control that ends in tears. You don't have to buy extra switches. Just make sure that the AV is handled only by switches done for AV.
Correct.
And finally, use quality transceiver.
Wait, that's interesting. He said, wait, what did he say? Hang on. Let's just roll that back a second.
You don't have to buy extra switches. Just make sure that the AV is handled only by switches done for AV.
You don't have to buy extra switches, but make sure AV is only handled by AV switches. Am I missing something?
And finally, use quality transceivers so it doesn't break when you go from a switch to a fiber cable and use an inferior module.
That I agree.
Most important tip, however, is to consult us before you start at proavdesign@netgear.com. We're here to help 24/7. With that said, more information you can find on netgear.com/proav. Thank you very much. We will help you when you deploy NDI, and we'll make it easy for you. Thank you.
Yes, it is exponentially easier. Oh, still the same guy.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much for your presentation, guys. Excellent. Now it's time for your questions. Please remember to type them into the chat box below, addressing them to either Roberto, Mads, or Richard.
Not on the stream.
And we also have Nori Yonizawa, PTZ Product Manager from Panasonic Global HQ, and Masashi Sawata, Network Engineer for Panasonic, who implemented the NDI technology into Panasonic PTZ cameras, joining us for this Q&A session from the Panasonic Global HQ in Japan. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Nori and Sawata, I have a first question for you. What would be the advantage of using NDI HX out of the Panasonic PTZ cameras instead of other vendors' cameras, please?
Ooh, let's hear it.
Okay, let me answer that question. First, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep, thanks for that question. So, we know that there are so many PTZ vendors who support NDI and NDI HX. And one of the key advantages of Panasonic being able to output NDI, especially HX, is we think that we developed its own Panasonic's own encoder to output IP streaming, which is utilized for streaming NDI HX, and that's why we have you can do more fine-tuned setting, such as bitrate setting and so on. As for the bitrate setting, you can set the bitrate in a very fine way from 1 megabit s to 20 Mbps. So I think it's one of the key advantages of using Panasonic PTZ cameras.
Excellent, thank you so much. And when would you choose the UE160 over the UE150 camera, and why?
Yeah, let me try to answer that. So basically, the UE160, as we saw, features a brand new set of competences. So, for instance, if you're doing a shooting in the theater or musical concert or even a conference where you need to use the zoom a lot, normally you would decrease the lighting going into the camera by doing so. So you would need the camera to be more light sensitive. So the UE160 with the brand new sensor makes it possible to get more light in. So for instance, when you're used to gain up in the camera and you will add more noise, you'll see that the level of noise in the UE160 is very low compared to the amount of light that are going into the sensor.
So that is one of the reasons. One of the other reasons is also because of the new focus system. So for instance, when you're doing a conference where you're following a person up stage, or you have a certain arrangement where persons will be walking and there will be a lot of movement, the contrast autofocus system is not that great for doing that, because it could easily be fixed on the background. So for instance, if you have a LED wall in the background where there's a lot of contrast in, the focus would go back and forth to try to steal the attention. But with the UE160's new focus system, using phase autofocus and also in combination with the contrast autofocus, will be a lot easier to see the talent instead and then focus on that. And as well as the new optical low pass filter, where you will actually reduce the amount of moire quite significantly. So you will definitely also see a difference in using the 160 over the UE100 in those situations. And that is just basically some of the features. There one other feature that I just came across in Italy and in Germany on my most recent trips, that we tested out the UE160 on robotic solutions, like dollies and totems and stuff like that. So the whole core structure of the UE160 is very stable and it's very rigid. So that means if you're moving the camera a lot on a dolly, for instance, you will have a very stable construction of the UE160. Thank you very much for that answer, Matt. Masashi, I think I have a question for you here. When would I use NDI HX and NDI full bandwidth instead of SDI or HDMI?
Yeah, I guess NGI and NGI HX advantage is a one cable solution compared with the SDI and HDMI. It means the NGI customer implements the many environment. For example, they cannot physically power supply, and they can more long distance video delivery. So I think so. Most advantage is that the customer they can implement the more easy to video workflows. So I think so.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I might also just add that when doing installations in new type of customers, when like for instance a hotel or a place where you don't have the necessary broadcast infrastructure, you're most likely to find a cable solution for Ethernet, connecting all the networks together in a hotel, for instance. And thereby it would be easier just to hang up the camera, plug in the cable, and then you're on, instead of drawing new cables around the building, making it a lot more expensive.
So couple of things here. The first is this camera they're talking about, the 160, it's announced. There is no price out there that I can find just yet. I'm looking up like B&H. I'm looking for Panasonic, like MSRP. I'm looking for a bunch of things in there. I don't see a price. The 150, which they talked about the 160 being such a large step up from the 150, is $10,000. So curious as to what the price will be, because it's a 1-inch 4K sensor. Now, granted, there's some bells and whistles on there that I don't know of anybody else having, so that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. There's a few things on there that I'm not like. Well, what's the price? First of all, that's like the first and foremost, right? It's like, what price are you guys talking about here? Because it seems like we're dancing around it. But oh, you know what? Is it possible for me to? Anyways, I'm like, okay, what's the price point here? Is it 12 grand? Is it going to be the same as like it's going to be 10 grand? 9,999. It doesn't necessarily specify, and so I'm gonna just jump into StreamYard on another stream, and that's not good. I should have muted that. Anyway, so yeah, I don't necessarily know what the price point of this would be if it does all this stuff and it's over $10,000. However, if they're bringing this in as a replacement for the 150 and it's going to do all this stuff, then I could see like major installers, doing that sort of thing, like going, I have a UE 150 confirm. What does that mean? What's going on, Michael? Good to see you, man. And DIHX just say no. Well, we know Michael's opinion about this. Sorry, let me just back this up here real quick. For a guy with all that expensive equipment behind him, and if you notice, it's like audio equipment, right? That's what, when you mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah. It's a little bit strange that he has like a lot of like audio equipment, a huge soundboard, all this stuff, and then he's got AirPods in. But anyways, it's like, shoot, man, you missed a chance there to use all that sweet equipment. That would have been cool to hear all that. But anyways, 10,000 can confirm. Yeah, it's a doozy. Remix. Well, that was pleasant. Thanks, guys. Yeah, evidently, yeah, I was listening to the show. So anyway, okay. Back to the show. Oh, so I can't find a price. That's the first thing. And but some of the things that they've talked about are nice. The explanation as to why to use NDI HX on this camera, I don't know if that sells it for me. And okay, bias, right? There we go. I'm a bird dog guy, so but his explanation of why should you use HX? We have our own chip that does the encode. Okay, that's not unique. And what was the other thing he said? He said, I can't even remember what he said, but it was like, okay, but that's like, these are all things that other people in the industry are doing, including Bird Dog, including PTZ Optics, including a few others. So it wasn't a strong case for using HX on a Panasonic camera. Now, I did like that little virtual room they had where you could remote into it and control things. I was like, ooh, that's a good sales pitchy idea. Yeah, that's a good idea because you can get in and see what the cameras look like in various lights and auto magic mode and everything. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to the show.
To implement cameras.
Great, thank you very much for those answers. Richard, when do I need to use AV over IP capable switches instead of the standard ones?
Always.
Yeah, you could say that if you do one NDI camera, then all that you need would be a small PoE switch. PoE meaning the power goes over that one cable that we just talked about. But if you have multiple switches with cameras maybe in different sites and a larger network where some of the NDI streams have to go to multiple receivers, you have to use a protocol called multicast, which kind of arranges the traffic. And you can compare this to a large square in the middle of a big city. If there is nothing to arrange all that traffic, and traffic comes from 7 different roads onto that central square, it's going to be messy.
Yeah, good analogy.
That protocol to
that.
arrange that underlying protocol is called IGMP. If you don't use a switch that has a proper implementation of that, you get choppy video. And we get a lot of questions from video people, not IT people, that say, I have choppy video.
I wonder what the guy to his right is thinking. Because those two guys, I think, would be at contrast with each other about how easy it is to use networking for NDI. So I'm just curious as to what he's thinking.
An IT
this
person
isn't a debate
that,
platform,
right?
though,
say,
or like
well,
a conversation platform, and so I don't think we're going to hear it. But
the query snooping. But video people don't talk like that. The picture is either good or it's not good.
Yeah,
so when we get
that's
confronted
true.
with a question like that, we go in and we check what kind of switch did you use, how did you set it up. We check the traffic going in and out. Is it being handled correctly? Is there a traffic cop on the network? This IGMP thing. And that's when we find, hey, your setup is correct. The only thing missing is actually a switch that can handle the traffic well. And that's when we advise use an AV over IP switch. which also made it to the #1 tip of our top 10 because it really solves most of the problems. As
And Senseless will agree that we recommend those all the time. I cannot tell you how many customers come back and be like, "Yep, like a better switch fixed all of our video problems."
and I have found last year when we started playing around with this. We have a Facebook group for NDI enthusiasts. Maybe you've seen it, NDI video users on Facebook.
Yeah.
36,000 members. It's the #1 question on that Facebook group is stuff like this. It's fun to be able to address it here on this webinar. Actually, thank you.
That's great to hear. Another question for you, Richard, is can I run NDI4 and NDI5 and Dante on the same network? And if so, how?
Yeah, what you're basically trying to do is run 3 Ferraris through a small street. And if everyone can drive really well, that's no problem. But we all know, right? So we try to separate it in 3 lanes. All these protocols are fantastic by themselves. Now, NDI4 is multi-TCP, as Roberto already commented. NDI5 is based on reliable UDP. That's a little different. And Dante, well, Dante is Dante. And Dante doesn't play well with NDI4 on the same VLAN, so we strongly recommend to separate that. There are people that are able to configure NDI4 and Dante on the same VLAN. Those people can also fly and land a space shuttle. The other 7.5 billion people in the world cannot do that.
Yep.
They use a Netgear switch that's, separated in traffic lanes.
Great answer.
Right. Thank you so much. I have a question for you, Roberto. Does NDI for Unreal finally support Mac OS?
Okay, so we improving the Mac OS support is in our plan.
Roadmap question.
That's it.
Attaboy. Spoken like a true developer.
By the way, can I add something about Dante and NDI? Myself and Netgear guys, we did a lot of tests. Let me tell you that with NDI5 is much easier to make NDI and Dante coexisting in the same network.
True.
I do it usually daily. And of course, you need to understand that, as Richard mentioned, Dante doesn't like, other Ferrari running in the same highway, but, reliable UDP helps a lot.
Right. Okay. I have another question for you here, Roberto, while I have you. Any experience with NDI Bridge in an enterprise? I think that means, do you need any experience with NDI Bridge as an enterprise?
So we have some customer using NDI Bridge to avoid multicast, and this is one of the typical usage in enterprise. For example, I need to share the same source with 100 or I don't know, many monitor, but I don't want to use multicast because it's too complex to set up. And this is one of the typical usage on
should have jumped in
NDI
there.
Bridge. And we have customer doing that. The other usage
for
is
Bridge.
Again sharing multiple NDI source over LAN, reducing the bandwidth. For example, I have several source inside the Studio One, and I want to share all those sources in Studio 2, but I don't want to use NDI full bandwidth. And so this is where NDI Bridge help, because can transcode all the NDI high bandwidth source to NDI HX with different bitrate. And this is another typical usage in this environment.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I have a question for the guys at Panasonic. I'm not sure if you can actually answer this, but what someone has said, we are developing NDI AV production integrated in private 5G network, into a private 5G network. Is Panasonic planning to offer NDI HX in the Kairos? Can anyone answer that?
I can tackle the 5G part. That's a product we have.
The dead silence is great.
So say it's from Netgear's perspective, it's possible to use our AV over IP switches with an uplink to our 5G modems, and we have models going up to several gigabit per second. And you can even do that if you add a redundant router, and there are manufacturers that are specialized in bonding multiple 5G connections. There is no technical reason why this shouldn't work, right? So I think this really comes down to having the right software and then choosing, for example, what Roberto discussed with NDI Bridge, the right way of getting it over the 5G network, right? What you should not be doing is using uncompressed streams, full NDI 4K 60, and then try to squeeze 10 of them through let's say a moderate 5G connection. That's probably not going to go well. So this all has to do with how you calculate the total bandwidth. There's a latency consideration as well, because 5G adds a little latency, but NDI can deal really well with latency, right? It's built in the protocol to deal with that. So from a network perspective, you're good.
Right. Thank you, Richard. That was a network question.
Just to add a note, this is one of the reasons why we develop NDI Bridge, because there are, especially wireless or 5G, sometimes there is a lot of jittering. And NDI Bridge helps a lot because there is an error correction method that is stronger than usual NDI, because NDI has been defined to be very low latency. And so in some condition, it's much better to use NDI Bridge.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone also said that you mentioned you consider Dante an audio protocol. Since a while, Dante also supports video distribution, Dante AV. Are the Netgear switches prepared for this? Some question for Roberto or Richard, please.
Yeah, I'll take the Dante AV question. So Dante AV is a combination of Dante audio using the same network framework, and it adds video to that. There's actually two versions. There's Dante AV, and now they have AVH, which uses H.264, H.265. You can use the same network, but if you would say, for example, you're building a home, can I connect 10 bathtubs and 10 showers to the same water pipe? Well, you can, but the water will be dripping, right? This will not be a full rain shower experience. It's the same with the Dante network. Yes, it works with 1 gigabit ports, but you cannot keep on expanding because the total bandwidth in the end, it has to come together somewhere, may not be enough. So the advice is just like with a proper NDI network, you have to do the math, right? It's one of the tips from our top 10. Add up how many of these connections need to traverse from the switch somewhere else, and then you can get this to work. If you use an NDI network and you also use Dante AV, there's no reason this shouldn't be working if you keep those tips and you make sure your bandwidth is considered.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And this is a question for the guys at Panasonic. Will the Panasonic UA150 support NDI?
His interview style is a little bit strange because he just stops cold turkey. Like there's no follow up. There's no like, what about this? Or like, oh, that's an interesting concept. Or like there's just nothing. It's just thank you very much. Next question. Next question. Next question. It's just very like it's a little strange, but it doesn't make the panel feel like they're having a conversation, which this is an outside critique of just the webinar at this point. Maybe that wasn't the purpose. Probably wasn't.
4K output in the future.
Sorry, what was the model number again?
The UE150. The question was, will Panasonic UE150 support 4K NDI output in the future update?
That's a good question. Let me just double check with the engineer, and I may have to, talk in Japanese. So 澤田さん、UE150 の 4K、これは将来難しい。
Let me ask the engineer. He's on screen, but we're going to talk in Japanese so you don't understand.
UE150, it's a hardware limitation of the hardware encoder, so it is so difficult to support up to NDI 4K output. But so we implement the NDI 4.
Hang on. Did this engineer just say that NDI HX struggles with encoding 4K? Interesting.
The output to AWE160, so it is different of the AWE150.
Yeah, that's a lot of data for their silicone to probably handle at 4K 60. That's very interesting,
and
though.
The AWE160.
Yeah, so if you're looking at 4K out of NDI, I would recommend that you go for UE160.
Okay, great.
Michael, to answer your question, it's Panasonic across the bottom on this panel, Netgear in the middle at the top, NDI on the far right, and then NDI on the far left. NDI is hosting this, like NDI.TV is hosting this, and then the guy on the far right is like one of the primary architects for the NDI protocol. Like he was there at the beginning.
Thank you so much.
The genesis.
And what are your plans about integrating NDI or SMPTE 2110 into your professional projector setups? Having the complete AV workflow and network base would be very interesting.
Huh.
Can you reveal?
This is also something that has been a lot of testing on, and we're ready to do. We have. I had the pleasure of being on tour with the visual guys for the last 2 months, learning a lot about projectors and screens and stuff. So that was very nice. And as they have these SDM slots in the projectors and the displays, they are able to implement almost anything made out there. So there's a lot of different vendors out there making different SDM boards for these products. So virtually anything would be possible in these products in the future. And some of them already supported, of course.
Oh, that's interesting.
Excellent. I have another question about the UE160. The Panasonic camera UE160 monitor output signal for the talent to view is received on the camera also via NDI. Can anyone answer that?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I can rephrase the question. Is the Panasonic camera UE160 monitor output signal for the talent to view received on the camera also via NDI? That's the correct phrasing of the question.
He said it was 2110.
Yeah, currently we planning. Okay.
Go ahead.
Currently we planning to monitor output is only ST2110.
Yeah.
But technically it is possible to support NDI, but currently not supported yet.
Okay.
Yes, it's only through ST2110 at this moment. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Someone is asking, is the AWE160 already available for purchase?
No, unfortunately not yet. It will be in the end of February next year. So currently now we are working on the camera and testing it out, see all the different features, showing it around when we get around. So we can't wait to show this to everybody in late February next year.
Just in time for NAB.
Hey, Mats, when did we show it at ISE end of January? If you have it available,
yes. Yeah.
We'll hook it up with a switch, with one of your projectors, maybe with an Intel SDM board, transcoding NDI straight into the projector. We can actually do that. That'd be a nice thing to show to everyone.
Yeah, definitely. We will show that. Yeah.
Roberto, I have a question for you. Is there a plan in place to have an application like NDI Studio Monitor available on mobiles?
I don't think is in our plan because we are much more focused to have third party doing something like that. So
that makes
NDI
sense.
tools are mainly for computer. And but there
PC
is a lot of,
that.
I mean, there are a lot of third-party developers that are developing now or on mobile platforms. So I believe this is happening soon.
Yes, this was streamed live several hours
Richard,
ago.
how do you recommend separating networks, AV versus control or other data, when a machine has limited ports?
Yeah, the the port on your computer is VLAN aware, depending on your implementation, you could use one port and place it in multiple VLANs. That is possible. If you don't want to do that and you have one port, well, you have to solve it in a different way. For example, by configuring a trunk port on the switch that would directly talk to your computer.
Oh.
A common scenario is you use NDI, for example, OBS Studio on your computer to manipulate some of these things, right? In a very small setup. I think most of us here have played with that. If you take it one step up, you would configure a vMix server, for example, and then you would typically do that. So we often talk, very often talk to customers that are trying to configure that. The answer is trunk port. The best solution is, if you really want to do this as powerful as possible, is 2 NIC cards in the computer.
Yes.
If you can't do that, it still would work.
Yeah.
If you do 2 NIC cards, it's possible to place the computer then simultaneously in 2 different VLANs, which is on one hand okay, because it's easier to configure. On the other hand, your IT manager may not like that, because you're creating a bridge on your computer and you may not deal with all the security in the right way.
Yeah.
So the securest way of doing it is get that, well, also cheaper computer connected to a trunk port on the switch, and we can help you configure that.
Yeah, I can show you how to do that too if you're interested.
If you are frustrated because it doesn't work, email us at proavdesign@netgear.com and we'll just do it for you.
Excellent. Okay. Question for you, Roberto. Is there already a possibility, i.e. hardware, to add Dante audio to NDI?
No, not by hardware, but there are, I mean, you can easily do it with NDI Audio Direct and an open source application like Ardour, for example. If you install in your computer an NDI Dante sound card, even the virtual sound card, and you run Ardour with the NDI audio plugin, NDI Audio Direct, then you can use Ardour as a NDI Dante gateway. Very easy.
Okay, thank you so much. I have a ton of questions here, especially for Panasonic. Everyone seems to want to know when the UA160 will be available. Can anyone tell me that?
Yeah, as we talked about before, late February. Yeah.
Okay.
For what price?
Someone's asking specifically in Australia. So. Okay, there's someone saying, hello from the University of Thessaloniki in Greece. Thank you for your excellent info sharing here. As an AV systems and designer and engineer for higher education, I am very pleased with the Panasonic AW cameras and NDI technology in general. I wish other AV manufacturers like Extron may integrate NDI directly into AV matrices. So to combine technologies like DTP into one device instead of using NDI HDMI converters. That doesn't seem to be a question, but they seem to be very happy with us anyway. Okay. Can the 3D protocol from a PTZ being transmitted somehow in the open internet for remote augmented reality production? Okay, let's see. Can the 3D protocol from a PTZ being transmitted somehow be on the open internet for remote augmented reality production? Can anyone tackle that one?
I can take it. We are working on that. We are working to define 3D over NDI protocol.
Okay, thank you very much. A question for Panasonic: is it possible to output the NDI and SDI signal at the same time on all types of PTZ cameras?
Most of the cameras can, and basically also from the UE160, you can actually use all the outputs at the same time.
I was going to be surprised if he said no.
Question. Do Panasonic PTZ cameras at present support both NDI 4 and 5?
Yes, is the short answer.
Short answers are good. Okay, let's have a look here. We have a lot of questions here. What is the maximum cable length for a cable run to a camera? I'm not sure what that one, if that one's pertinent or not.
Yeah, that's me. 100.
Hold up, Nathan. Nathan just jumped in here real quick. I just want to throw this up here. Hello, I just stopped into one of your streams to inquire about a feature Birdlight might have had a while ago, and since that stream, I've been watching your streams. I've been learning so much. Oh, this is nice. This is a good little ego boost for me. Due to this, I've gotten a lot of great ideas on how bird dog cameras may meet my needs. Thank you for the streams. They've been very informative. You are very welcome. Thank you for saying something. Yeah, I'm glad you feel that way, because that's been really that's been the whole point. We just want to make a live form where it's, informative, and people can take what they need, hang out with us, get to know some of the guys in the industry, some people that have become friends because of this stream here on Bird Dog, and of course my team who watch in the background while they're busy working on stuff. So really appreciate that. Thanks for saying something.
Meters, even if you use PoE, and that's part of the Ethernet specification. We've tested that; it just works. Don't buy the cheapest Ethernet cable on AliExpress. I would say buy a decent one. And then if you're in live production using NDI, which is a fantastic application for NDI, make sure the visitors don't trip over the cable. That would be okay. But, 100 meters, no.
Okay, great. Another
That's
one for you,
great.
Richard. Well, using Wi-Fi and NDI isn't recommended, but does Netgear have any offerings for this?
Looking at it, so currently the limitation for Wi-Fi is that Wi-Fi changes any form of multicast into broadcast. It goes everywhere, so it gets very noisy. So what we've tested is take an NDI camera, use a Wi-Fi bridge to replace an Ethernet cable, obviously without the PoE option, right? You would need power still. And then you can bridge an NDI signal over Wi-Fi. I mean, it's more than fast enough. But doing a real NDI protocol deeply embedded in Wi-Fi, with the current technology, Wi-Fi 6 and 6E, don't think that will happen. But with the new Wi-Fi 7 specification, there are some possibilities. And we're having discussions, and this is really very low level with the chip manufacturers about how to do that. But don't expect anything for the next 2 years.
Okay, and the reason is because we're always pushing the limit with wired, and Wi-Fi is always 2 generations behind wired technology. So when you get the latest and greatest wireless connection, the chip has to be fast enough inside the device to do it. And then the transmitter of the Wi-Fi also has to be fast enough to do it. And that connection, if you get the best of the best today, is 2 generations behind how fast we can do it with wired. That's why we struggle with that. We're not catering to the lowest common denominator. We're going for Ferraris in this scenario. We're going for Ferrari type of technology. And to do that, you need to capitalize on the massive advantage that wired technology has over wireless. It's just the way it goes. Primarily because the Wi-Fi protocol is built off of the wired protocol. And so in a like a pseudo, everything being equal world, you could get equal performance, which you can't. But in real world numbers, coming from a networking side of the conversation, and I've done wireless for years in terms of installs and all that, you're always 2 generations behind. And so that's going to be the problem. Always. I don't foresee that ever catching up. Now, if, for example, we figure out a way to do like less with more or more with less. So if we do better video with less bandwidth, and that happens like that, this will come down to the fundamentals of how NDI encodes and does their protocol and writes their SDK and all of that from the top down. If we can get a whole lot more with a whole lot less, maybe. But right now we're on the cusp of pushing the boundaries of the current wired standards, which right now I would say is 6A. I mean, there's Cat 7, Cat 8 out there, but that's a little less common. If you go to do a network install right now, you're quoting out 6A because it's twisted pair, it's shielded, it's 10 gigs, it's economically, it makes sense, it's affordable, and so on and so on and so on. And so unless you're like NetHab and you are a rocket scientist that knows how to configure and do everything and manipulate his network at that level. If you're not that guy or gal, we don't discriminate here at Bird Dog. You could be a network administrator, whoever you are. But if you are, unless you're at that level, then the common installation right now is Cat 6A, 10 gigs through, and so that's what Netgear is also. They're also watching that. They're looking at the future. They're keeping in mind of like the economical things, but they're right in the middle where they're making these like AV switches for the mass market and the majority of where the money is going to be. So keep that all in mind.
Thank you. Roberto or Richard again, how does the NDI discovery server affect the network traffic? Does it avoid having to use multicast?
Ooh, we're going to talk about discovery server.
Yeah. Can you, Roberto, handle the MDNS, and then we'll talk a little bit about multicast after that?
Yeah.
Yay, MDNS.
So,
here we go. From the mouth of the designer.
NDI use MDNS. Is exactly, in our plan was to make NDI working very easily, exactly like when you want to print a document with your network printer. You discover your printer and you print a document. We did exactly the same with NDI.
That's a really bad analogy because everybody knows that in the IT world, the troubleshooting printers is like the bane of IT existence. So, but anyways.
But there are situations where MDNS, for example, is not welcomed by the security people in your network. This is a typical example. Or maybe, you have 100 of NDI transmitter and receiver in the network and MDNS becomes low. So we developed this a very small application, discovery server, and this application exists for almost any operating system, for Linux, Windows, Mac OS. And at this point, if you set up the discovery server in your NDI equipment, then they stop transmit MDNS and they are sending their information to the discovery server. And this is, there are different advantage using the discovery server. The discovery and registration is faster. You can have a discovery server working across different subnets. So one discovery server can be used to discover NDI source in different subnet. And you can use discovery server to avoid, for example, the combination between discovery server and NIC selection. With this technique, you avoid NDI, for example, to use the Dante network. And I hand over to you, Richard, about multicast.
Yeah, I think MDNS is a great way for easy discovery, and I fully agree with what Roberto said. I think it's one of the foundations for the huge success of NDI because it makes it easy. The same what Apple did when they used MDNS to build Bonjour, right? Which means any Apple device can find any Apple device like that. Now, we have a business case with a large high school here in the Netherlands, actually, that fully runs on Apple, where there was one network and all the Apple devices say every few seconds, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. It got very noisy. So they had to separate that, and then you enter what Roberto was describing. Well, then you need to work across VLANs because you separate classrooms on different VLANs, different protocols on different VLANs. Becomes very messy. Now, having Discovery Server, I think, is a great solution for that because Roberto says it works across VLANs. Now, when you do multicast, subnets, which means one device can send to multiple receiving devices, but not all of them, you typically do that on one VLAN. And that's the way we at Netgear handle this as a layer 2 protocol on the VLAN. We don't go over all the VLANs with this because it defies the purpose, right? Then it would get messy again and noisy. So when you design a network to do this, I think Roberto gave the perfect tip using Discovery Server if you have NDI devices over different VLANs. Our advice on top of that is if you don't have to, don't do this, right? It gets messy, it gets noisy. You need to start thinking about inter-VLAN routing, maybe PIM routing. You don't want that headache. That's only if you have a very large enterprise or a university campus, you would need to fall into that trap. Don't do this to yourself. It's very hurtful and painful.
He just called it a trap.
and there will be tears. So let us help you by doing it on one VLAN
Weeping and
with
gnashing.
NDI, multiple VLANs if necessary.
Oh,
Keep
that's
Dante
great.
away from it.
There will be
I
tears.
think that will be the quickest way to success.
We need to put
Okay,
that on our
networking question here,
Discovery
please. Probably
server
for Roberto. Will NDI be introducing
video.
test tools to
Just
see in
say,
real
hey,
time how the
but
system is
just so you
performing?
know, you'll cry by the time this is over.
I'm not sure I understood the question. Can you
Of course.
repeat? Yep.
Yes. Will NDI introduce test tools to see in real time how the system is performing?
Okay. So I think so what we need
Say
to
it.
do, and
Say
this
it.
is again in the
Say
plan,
Bird Dog Dino
we
exists.
need to add some data on NDI transmitter, some metadata, to be able to then create a software application to, let's say, to verify possible issue on the network or the transmitter. We are working on that. But I think, again, we would like third party to develop those kind of application, because
Bird
this
Dog
is not
Dino.
really our part of expertise. I mean,
That's funny
we
because
are-
you make the protocol, you sell the protocol, but you're not planning on making any platforms that will like help diagnose what's wrong. That's a very interesting business model.
doing NDI, and there are
It's
experts
not my problem, not
on
my monkeys, right?
networking or analysis tool. And this is the reason why we are improving our SDK, to give the opportunity to third party to develop more tools around NDI. But we definitely want to do it.
Yeah, I think on the side, we can say the reason why people want this tool is, do they just want to stare at something that shows everything is good, right? A whole bunch of green dots. You want to use it when there's something wrong. And when there's something wrong, you can say, okay, we have a trouble with some NDI performance on a certain segment of the network. Well, then the next question is,
the whole network.
just when you go to the doctor, you don't ask, how do I get this illness? No, how do I get rid of this illness? So very quickly, you need to go one level down. And that's where we come in. I think, and Roberto worded already perfectly, NDI takes care of the video, right? The underlying Netgear network should take care of the performance. So if there's something with that, don't call Roberto, call me, right? And we'll solve that issue. And then we have the tools built in our AV over IP switches, the M4250, which is really the best fit for NDI.
I just
There's actually
heard that
a way
the
you can
Netgear
export
wants
a
to take
file
all
that
NDI
shows you
networking
per port
questions.
what's going in and what's going out. And with that, and we have done thousands and thousands of these analyses, we're very capable of immediately pinpointing what the problem is, right? It's usually an uplink port that is not performing, or a transceiver that's not doing well, or maybe a broken cable. It's usually small issues that are easy to solve once you know on the network level where the problem is. So don't blame Roberto. It's not his fault.
Okay, Roberto. Okay, a couple of PTZ specific questions now before we wrap up. Mads, with the UE160, when using moire reduction, is there a recommended minimum distance between the subject and an LED wall? Good question.
Ooh,
that's a very good question. You could say, or you could argue, that if you place the talent further away from the background, or the LED wall in this case, you could blur the background using the zoom and the focus to create this shallow depth of field. But another issue would then be, okay, I need to show the background in my broadcast because I have some graphics there, or I have an underlying video or something. So you can't get anything, everything in one. So you need to test out the best position of the camera in order to see how it reacts. Actually, I was in Finland a couple of weeks ago doing a test where they had this whole floor of LEDs. So actually showing very spread out LEDs with a video, and also we had a screen on the back showing videos as well. So I was placing the UE160 in different lengths from the scene to see where it would grab up the moire and show it, and I tested it against the UE150. So some of the results is that if you are in a certain position, you would see both round moires and square moires. But on the UE160, you would only see the square rays, meaning that you won't notice it that much because you're kind of just seeing the structure of the LED wall. So one could argue that you would just need to test out what you want to see. And if you are building a studio.
Okay. I think this guy, top left-hand corner, every time he looks down, he looks like he's asleep. I know he's reading the next question, but he's certainly not listening to the answer.
Where the viewer is meant to see the background all the time.
Now I can't unsee it.
You would need to go with an LED wall where the pixels
or maybe his screen is low,
much denser.
And his camera's
if
up,
you're just
you know,
using
and so
the wall
he's
to
doing
create
this
some
number,
colors or
like
some
watching the answer maybe, but it looks like he's asleep.
on the talent. So you really need to test it out to see the difference.
And that answer is more true than you think it is. You need to test it out. You need to test it out and see if this is even going to work. Because if you put a bright, shining light behind you, it's probably going to put you in the shadows because it's going to try and adjust to that level of lumens. And so if you're going to set it up, like this screens on stage thing is not necessarily new, but these LED walls that do like these crazy levels of lumens, yeah, you need to test it out. That's the correct answer from anyone in sales or support. You really need to test this before you go live and play with everything. Try and see what options you have, because the camera is assuming you have a light source, a headlight, a fill light, and that it's a traditional lighting situation. I had a customer from a church that was giving me a hard time because the cameras don't look like I thought they were going to look like. And he had them on full auto, and he was zooming way out and then way all the way in. And of course, the lenses darkened the zoomed in shot, and it had a lot of light on the back end. And so it was it wasn't adjusting like he thought it should. He was thinking he was buying broadcast cameras that will be automatic for him. Whereas he wasn't really interested in adjusting exposure and white balance and doing a lot of customization that comes with this sort of, excuse me, this level of, lens sophistication. And so I was having this conversation with him, and I was trying to provide some training, and he just was like, these cameras are way more than I want. And it was an interesting realization. I think we both had this, yeah, maybe you purchase something way above the level in which you are prepared to use it, which is a tough realization. But anyways,
because if you have seen a broadcast where they use an LED wall in the background, you can easily see the pixels. You can almost count them. So the question is, do you want to be able to count the pixels, or do you want it to be blurred out, or do you want to just see what's going on in the background and then choose the right LED screen for that instead of chasing another camera, basically?
Great answer. Thank you very much, Mads. I think that's all we have time for today. Obviously, I have so many questions coming. There's a lot of interest here. So if we didn't answer any of your questions and you would like to get in touch with us, please join us on Facebook or LinkedIn or on our website, ndi.tv. And also, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find lots more information and helpful videos. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mads, Richard, Robert, Roberto, Masashi, and Nori-chan. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Have a lovely day.
All right. Well, that was interesting. Okay, so yeah, we've had let me close some of this out here. Hang on, because I've got office hours just started on YouTube, the autoplay. Okay. All right. Well, that was interesting. A lot of I was actually, I didn't know about doing that with Panasonic being the showcased item. However, it's very interesting to have their developers and their sales guy on there talking about their products and why choose Panasonic over your competitors and listening to what their answers should be. I wasn't necessarily overly impressed with their answers about why Panasonic over someone else. But I did learn that they have a little demo room, and that's pretty cool. That's a good idea. That's what that is. where you can reserve a little time, log into it, and get a brief understanding as to what's going on. I like that, but there were some other things that I was just like, meh, not super thrilled with the way. Like, why choose HX? It almost seems, and this is just maybe me like drawing conclusions where there aren't any conclusions. It almost seems like, well, HX is one function of a very sophisticated camera. We also do 2110, and they didn't talk about that very much. They also do SDI. They also do HDMI. Like it seems like it was a feature of the camera, but it wasn't the feature of the camera. And Bird Dog, I mean, we hang out in the NDI realm. That's our driving force. And so we pick a great lens. We pick a good, I think, just as good as any other camera body. Our design in terms of heat dissipation, whatever, like, I think the guys at Boland have done a great job with that. But so there's like not a whole lot there to draw conclusions from. So it seemed like the conversation was about NDI, but the Panasonic guys didn't seem to think that the conversation with their cameras was really about NDI. I mean, that's a distinction, I guess, that I made in all of this, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let me jump over to the comment section because you guys have been chatting while we've been watching this, and I didn't bring a lot of the chat into this, but we can kind of go through. Thanks for bearing with me during the audio issues. The presentation secrets of Steve Jobs should be required reading for good slides. Yeah, I didn't like the slides. They could have done a whole lot more with that, but it was just square pictures and black and white text on a white background, and that was actually Roberto's slides were nice, but it seemed like maybe a new text marketing department had put that together. So, but anyways, there's a little bit, even just like font choices and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and that dude did not know that it was going to go back to him after Netgear was done talking. So, or after was it Roberto? Yeah, Roberto was done talking. So that was hilarious, and many of you agreed with me. I had a good chuckle on that, so that was great. So since Quad runs FPGA, does that mean that alpha channel support is now possible? Because we really need to add to the list of work to add to the Quad. Yeah, let's baby steps with Quad. All right, let's go one step at a time, because good golly. So yeah, Panasonic promotion on Bird Dog John's live show. Yeah, again, that was the piece where I was like, do I want to do this? But then kind of happy. I mean, it's always, you don't want to live in a bubble where you don't know what your competitors are up to, right? And so it's good for us to talk about what other people are up to. They have features we don't have, and we have features they don't have. And that's okay. We can sit down and have civil discord about that, and that's all good. But yeah, I did like taking that 4K sensor and doing like the cropping stuff. That is an interesting idea. That seems like a fun little party trick. So anyways, again, we don't need to add more to what the engineers are up to, but if we had like just oodles of time, that's an official term, then yeah, that'd be fun. So now all we need is that Netgear money, and my bingo card is a winner. Data video 4K cropping. It's novel, but I'd rather have multiple cameras. Ooh. I mean, you certainly have a lot more flexibility when you have multiple cameras, but if you have a budget restriction, having the area of interest, AOI, is a nice little feature. I mean, it's a party trick, but it's a 1080 image on a 4K sensor, which is what a lot of people are doing with the 4K sensors these days. So, yeah, I'm still hoping that Bird Dog Core will be able to get a return NDI feed. I don't know anything about that, so I can't speak to that yet. This I'm excited about. That was when Netgear started talking about his just Netgear started talking. So I love that vintage clip art. Yeah, that stuttering looks like video through PowerPoint. It definitely was, which, to put nicely, is a bad idea. I would agree with that. Yeah, that chart that they showed TCP and UDP and about those multiple, tests that they were doing. It was a little confusing, but I got it. I understood. It was actually helpful. The interesting thing about that list is we have found out that asymmetrical flow control is actually helps with, in the current firmware iteration, actually helps with the NDI5 stuff. And so that's an interesting discovery. But you did see that asymmetrical was in the good category. And the symmetrical was in the needs more work. So there you go. If you want to talk more about that, we can talk about that. It's very interesting about flow control working better or worse for UDP versus TCP. And it was better for TCP, if I recall, and worse for UDP. It said bad. So there you go. 10 tips. Use a Netgear switch. Well, he is a Netgear guy, so you can't blame him for not having. But those 10 items, there wasn't much on there. Actually, there wasn't anything on there that I thought was a red flag as that's marketing. No, they were all real deals, especially number 10, which was use quality transceivers. Yeah, that's way more common than you think. Matter of fact, use quality transceivers, not this one. This is one of those stupid RJ45 transceivers. Garbage. Don't use those. Garbage. If you really want to know what I feel about this, they're garbage. Seriously, don't use them. That dude's audio is terrible. Agreed. And it cleaned up a little bit, but it stopped dropping packets because you could hear it breaking. But cleaned up a little bit near the end, but it was definitely still not good. So it's a shame that he was using AirPods because I feel like he could have probably had a microphone on and sounded 10 times better as the host. But yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, the AirPods get a little mixed up. Happens to my coworker. Oh, that's a bummer. For a guy with all that expensive equipment behind him. Yeah, right. That was a little strange. I have a UE150. I can confirm. And then this is when we talked about how expensive they were. So from my understanding, the UE160 is for SMPTE 2110 and the Carios $30,000 switcher. Wowzers. I'm going to have to Google some stuff. Not the SMPTE 2110. I get that. But, what was it? What was I watching? I wasn't watching. I was participating. On Tuesday, we talked about the reason why NDI came out swinging and saying this protocol is so easy to use on your network. You don't need to have a giant network. It just works. The reason why they said that was because they were comparing themselves to SMPTE 2110. SMPTE 2110 requires 10 gigabit backbones and some very sophisticated networking and expensive equipment. And it's good quality, but guess what? It costs a ton to get off the ground. And so NDI came out and said, and fair enough, they came out and said, you don't need all that. This just works on regular networking equipment. What they failed to say was, but not the crappy stuff that you buy at the big box store. Don't buy that. That's what they should have said, but they didn't. And so now we're going the other way where we're like, no, not the $30 Linksys router. That's not what we were talking about. What we were talking about was you don't have to go out and buy the 10 gigabit backbone to make NDI work. You can, and endpoints for that matter. So anyways, that was Tuesday. If you missed Tuesday's show, I had a roundtable that looked a lot like that, actually, except my audio was better. Well, except for that one time I opened Scan Converter and it screwed with my audio. Anyways, NDI HX only when a bandwidth constrained link like Wi-Fi. And I've actually heard of HX being used over Wi-Fi, but I agree with Netgear point to point. If you're going to if you need the distance jump without the Ethernet cable, then point to point is the way to go. And the reason I think point to point is the way to go and steer clear of Wi-Fi, even in an HX scenario, is because point to point is on a different band than Wi-Fi, and you can go a lot further than Wi-Fi will ever be able to do in probably my lifetime. Point to point, I've used some of those Ubiquiti satellites and stuff that you tune them, you have to do it right, but you can easily go across a few miles and get a gigabit throughput. It's pretty slick. I had the pleasure And it was a pleasure. It took a while to figure it out because I wasn't necessarily like Unify trained. I was just reading those little crappy user manuals they have. And we had a fiber line get cut between two buildings at the university I was working at, the college at the time. And we set up two point-to-points satellites that cost us like, I don't know, I think it was like $1,500 by the time it was all said and done. I set those up and I was getting faster speeds through the point-to-point than I was over the multi-mode fiber that we previously had run. So yeah, I mean, there's solutions out there that will give you that. But again, you're talking about live video, right? So every thing you do that, those satellites back in the day could do 1 gig throughput, like they were 1.25 or something like that. I haven't looked at them recently, full disclosure. And I wasn't doing NDI over that network, but I was doing VoIP and I was doing the student network Wi-Fi and I was doing, the employee network and whatever. So, and it withstood some rainstorms, windstorms, snowstorms, a whole bunch of stuff. And it worked the whole time I was there. Now Balu, he's probably not on this show anymore. I don't know if he's still sticking around, but Balu was there after I was. He was there when I was there, but also after. So he may be able to tell me if that system ever crapped out while he was there. But anyways, $10,000. Yeah, that's for the 150. That wasn't the 160. And this 160 evidently is really good compared to the 150. So what's the price? Not having access to NDI-HX devices, I'd be inclined to at least try it to keep my bandwidth ceiling low, even in a wired environment. Can BirdDog Dino suss out some of this stuffs that they're talking about to try and diagnose? So this is when I saw this comment. I echoed Dino little bit, but not really. I mean, Dino, first of all, is really designed for BirdDog infrastructures, but Dino will tell you if your computer or your network is having issues. It basically makes the assumption that the BirdDog device is functioning correctly. And, at support, we help people that actually have real dysfunctional BirdDog devices, typically when they drop them or do firmware updates incorrectly or something like that. But for the most part, the majority of our gear that we've sold is functioning correctly in the field, and we're trying to diagnose networks or NIC cards on computers. And so it's pretty limited in what it will show, unfortunately. Like, it's basically making a graphic of the of NDI analysis is what it's doing. It's showing you the data in graph form that NDI analysis shows us. And so that only tells you, though, that there's something wrong. And then you can make adjustments. And I've done this actually in my office. You can make adjustments, like you can change out the NIC card for something else. I don't recommend these for NDI, by the way, but you can change it out, see if that makes a difference. And if it does, then you've got an issue locally on your computer. You can swap out a switch or plug your computer into a different switch and see if your performance changes. And if it does, you've got an issue on the network somewhere, or the computer for that matter. But it goes on. So it does, but it kind of just shows you that there's a problem. It doesn't tell you where the problem is. And that's, I think, what the question was when are you guys going to make some tools that help us diagnose where the problem is? Because we don't have money to hire out, a network admin and come and figure this out. So I get it. I mean, I can sympathize with that because a lot of IT departments are one-man bands. And we want to do these productions. And so we're going to buy a bunch of these cameras, and that IT guy is going to come in on weekends and record our game, like our basketball games for our elementary school, and put them up on YouTube. Okay, cool. Still one guy. Now he's required to be a production guy, an IT guy. He's required to be a network admin. He's required to be all these things, an audio engineer. And there's no money. Like, they're breaking the bank to buy the cameras and the keyboard or whatever. And there's no money to hire out a network crew and come and sort it out. So yeah, there need to be some tools out there, or like a free support department where you can put in a ticket and be treated as an equal like everyone else. And maybe this is the moment to just put this up here for a few minutes. So if you need some help with your BirdDog gear, my boys are some of the best in the industry. Oh, and we hired a girl. So my people are some of the best in the industry now, and they'll get back to you. I promise. We will get back to you. Stuff happens sometimes. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer than normal. Like we hire 2 brand new people to the NDI world and we train them up. So sometimes responses take a little bit of more time than they normally do. But Clay is here. I am here. Cece's here. You know, Brayton's on vacation. He's out gallivanting somewhere. I can talk about him because no, he's definitely not watching this show. He's enjoying the beach somewhere. And we've got 2 more folks coming up that are getting trained up, and they're going to be aces. And I've also hired somebody else to handle everything else that happens in this office. And so lots of good things are happening here in the Bird Dog office in Auburn Hills. So be excited. That's an order. Philosophically, craft is about coming to know your tools. There is no art without first mastering the craft. Learn about networking. Just do it. The only time that it doesn't fix things is is when you buy a switch with the word managed in the title. You plug it in, you expect it to work like magic, and then you return it in frustration without actually asking any further questions. Otherwise, it nearly fixes everything. Oh, senseless. I'm sorry, but those ones are just frustrating. The story goes, we made a network recommendation to somebody because they were using an unmanaged switch. So they went up to the store and they bought a managed switch and they plugged it all in and fired it up, and it didn't fix their problem. And they boxed it all up and returned the switch because, you know, we had bought this expensive switch and it didn't do it. It's like, well, hang on. Hang on. You need to set the switch up to work correctly, not just, oh, you know, this is the danger. This is the danger in telling people in your marketing, just plug it in. Yes, compared to SMPTE 2110, yes, it's way different. But most people don't know that comparison. Most people read your marketing and think it's plug and play. It's like, anyway. Someone who has spent a lifetime in SIP, voice, video conferencing, all these network management things are not new. They're just new to the industry and this audience. I would agree. Who thought that would be a good idea to put roadmap questions in your canned questions if you didn't know the answer? So as I understand it, those questions were coming in during the live webinar. And that's why it went for an hour and a bit. And the guy kind of like just cut it cold. Just like his transitions. I use Dante and NDI on the same Unify switch weekly, and I never have a problem. But I also know what I'm doing. I've gathered that over the age that NetHab knows what he's doing. So let's not try and replicate what he's doing unless you're buddies with him. NetHab, when was the last time you landed the shuttle? It helps that they are just down the street and I can beat them up when it doesn't work. It does help. And not like Clay was working with Clay regularly works with guys in like stadiums and stuff, and we're like, hey, can you power cycle the camera? And they're like, I'll be back. And they leave for 20 minutes because they have to go to the headroom that's way down on the other side of the field, and they like power cycle, and then they walk all the way back. Okay, I power cycle, and Clay's like, yeah, that didn't do it. 10 4K streams wouldn't go well over a 5 gig pipe, let alone 5G pipe. Yeah, that was an interesting question. I think that is really coming from a group of installers or people or clients that just like, they're not super versed in the bandwidth limitations of just networks in general. Like they see 5G and they see LTE and they see 10 gig or 1 gig base, or they see like all these words and they don't understand, when does it come into 5G wireless? It's like, Papadoo. Yeah, you should really like learn about the network capacity of those phrases before you use them, because what we're doing, like, it wouldn't make sense for me to talk about full NDI on 5G. Like, realistically, it wouldn't in like a real production environment. You could do it as a test, sure, but like, that's why we came up with Bird Dog Cloud. That's why the engineers did. I didn't. I had nothing to do with the development of that product, and it is slick. Have you used Cloud 3? Oh my word. If you're using Cloud 2 and you're not using a Dante license, you go over and use Cloud 3 because it's so cool. It's so much better. And all credit to my buddy Jan and his developers over there in Norway, because he's like the brains and the backbone of that whole operation. Yeah, hands down. It's like such a great leap forward. And I was on the call with him the other day, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I feel like we just launched Cloud 2." And he's like, "No, I was like almost 2 years ago." And I was like, "It's been 2 years since Cloud 2 came out? Oh, my word." And then I've been here for almost 4. So, yeah, time keeps on going, man. And I get more and more gray hair as time goes along. So you can't really see it because of the blue light, and I don't mind that at all. It's called scripted television. I actually think that was live, and they were like rolling that, because, and you saw when they're like, "Now for a question, the Panasonic guys," and then it was like, oh, it was the output on the camera. Is that NDI? And they're all like, it's really for SMPTE 2110. And I was like, oh, that one wasn't. They weren't ready for that one for sure. This entire webinar is unbranded. It seems odd that we don't know who represents who. Yeah, sorry. So NDI, Netgear, NDI, Panasonic on the bottom. H.264 in general doesn't do 4K well. Almost all Panasonic products switch to HEVC for 4K. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks, NetHab. That's very helpful. I'm going to file that away of reasons why you buy bird dogs. With how much pre-recorded content was in here, I'm surprised that they didn't add lower thirds. Again, I don't know if anything is pre-recorded. I think that was live. I think that was them. It was promoted as an NDI live conversation between Panasonic, Netgear, and NDI. And there are no visual cues of who's who. I would agree. For all that Dante gear in this dude's headshot, his audio is terrible. It improved, but again, that's AirPods for you. I mean, I have been in calls where AirPods are like really good. And I've seen podcasts, video podcasts and stuff where AirPods is the primary microphone. And look, I used crappier audio microphones for a long time on this show. So it's been 3 years that I've been doing this, and I think audio is king. And I think a lot of people agree with me on that. And so that's why I personally went out to increase your listening pleasure and purchase this microphone, the RE20. And she is a beaut. The RE20. Anyway, for those of you who are still watching this show, bravo. It's been 2 hours. Bravo. If you're still, it's probably my entire team is probably the ones watching this, and maybe some sales guys. Anyways, this explains why he's asking questions that would seem dumb if they were prepared questions. I don't know if they seem dumb. I just think that people were just not prepared for. They were just not prepared for the questions he was about to ask. What I really thought was a bit of a weird shift was, hey, I'm going to talk Japanese for a second. I was like, what? He's probably like, I mean, we could totally Google Translate what he said, but any bets on what he was talking about in Japanese to his engineer? Maybe his engineer didn't understand the question in an English form, and so he rephrased it in Japanese so that the engineer would be like, oh, I know what he's talking about. I don't know. But the gentleman in the middle on the bottom for Panasonic seemed fully capable of understanding what was going on. So I don't know why he had to talk to him in Japanese, unless it was like an NDA question. Like, hey, are you done that project yet? Because these guys want to know. Have you even thought about doing that? Who knows what he put on there? Yes. I can't wait for OBS NDI to get up to NDI 5. Is there a roadmap for that? I haven't actually heard of a roadmap, but I'm sure somebody's working on it. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing. So we want other companies to do the work. I disagree. I think NDI knows what they're doing, but I think NDI has a fixed amount of resources, and they've got to use those in the best, because now they're a part of VizRT and they're not new tech. NDI.TV is its own like entity underneath the VizRT umbrella. And I think they've been given a fixed amount of resources and told execute, and make money, so we don't like push NDI off into the distance. So they're doing what they need to do to generate interest, money, make the protocol way better, make it more accessible. That's why you heard Roberto say we actually want to enable these tools for other people to develop those sorts of things. I think that's exactly what's going on. And look, you got to make money. You can't just do things that are like pro bono all the time. And for the first 2.5 years, NDI was developing as much as they possibly can. They came out with their own cameras. They integrated into TriCaster. They were like trying to make it accessible, but they're trying to like make it profitable. And now that NDI is commonly talked about, just watch non-NDI shows, watch Global Office Hours. They talk about NDI like once a week. So it's a thing. It's a part of production. Like NDI is a standard. And you know what I don't hear? 2110. I don't hear that talked about at all. I don't hear about that at all. And maybe that's just me living in a bubble over here, but I really don't hear people being like, "Oh, I'd love to do 2110." I don't think those conversations are happening. And it's also interesting then to watch Panasonic react, like the developers and whatever. Like they make cameras, that's what they do. But they add these other features in line as well. And so when it's NDI focused, they're not NDI focused. They're camera focused, not NDI feature focused. Whereas what we do is NDI full. I mean, we choose a camera, we choose a great lens, we choose a bunch of things, but like NDI is the game for BirdDog. And granted, it may not be the only thing BirdDog does. I don't know what the roadmap for BirdDog looks like. I'm not a part of those dev meetings as to like here's the future, where we think we'll go into these directions. But like the BirdDog P200 is the camera when you talk about BirdDog cameras, but when you talk about NDI, it's like there. If not first, maybe second. And I don't know who you'd put ahead of it. I don't know. I mean, you can't ask a manufacturer whose camera is better than them, but like go and survey some people and be like, if you were going to buy an NDI a camera today for NDI functionality, which one would you buy? I think more than half of people would say the BirdDog P200. And if the P240 is what the team like, they had it at IBC and they had it, I think, at Zoomtopia. And Jake, whose opinion, by the way, about cameras, I trust to a level of like without question, because he's been in the market, the camera market, and not just BirdDog market for a very long time. Jake has said the 240 image is unbelievable compared to the 200, which like I love the 200. This is a 200. I love that picture. I think it looks amazing. But if Jake says it's better than the 200, then I'm very interested in that, in finding out more. I actually haven't seen the 240 yet in terms of like had one where I can play with it and put it in my studio and see how it compares. But anyways, he looks like this was the NDI.TV guy. It looks like he's got somebody in his ear telling him, please nod now. It was a little bit strange. Like I mentioned in the show, in the webinar, he was like kind of listening, but I think he was doing this and reading the next question, like reading through the questions. And it would have benefited him to have somebody doing that for him, because then he could have been a lot more engaged with his guests and not just focused on what his guests were, not just focused on like the function of the webinar, but actually being engaged with his panel. So if I get to a place where I'm always distracted when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm going to hold you all accountable to keep me accountable to that. That's garbage. Don't let me get away with that. It's garbage, I tell you. That's bad interviews. That's not what I want to do on this show. Our LED wall runs at 10% brightness. So that was an interesting comment that that Buddy had made about that, because he had said, I put the 160 up against an LED wall and you could like count the pixels. And he's like, really, you need to ask yourself, what do you want your LED wall to look like on camera? And I fully agree with him on that, actually. Like, that is a distinction. That's something you're going to have to decide. If you're going to put an LED wall on camera. And just give me a quick second here. I'm just going to adjust. Oh, the autofocus worked. Okay. That is a question that you have to answer if you have LED walls on your stage and you have cameras that are then doing live or stream or iMag or something like that. You're going to have to decide what you want that to look like on camera and make a decision about that, and then adjust your cameras accordingly. Be curious how the well, I'll be curious to know how our cameras do with LED walls, to be honest with you. I know that we did a backlight compensation feature on the P4K. I would love to see that in real world. I have a gig coming up. Anyway, whatevs. Well, more on that later. Let's keep going here. Great chat, by the way, guys. Thanks for being so active today. This has been really great. To most of the problems in the AV world are solved with testing, and then comes more testing. So that goes back to my comment about, yes, don't just run into a gig and plug everything in and expect it to work perfectly. You need to test. You need to get there a few hours early. Know that the infrastructure is going to work. Have your 4250 already pre-configured. Have your DHCP reservation list ready to go. Show up, set up the cameras, get your shots aligned up, and make sure that you have a chance to test it and figure out. And if everything works perfectly, wonderful. Go get coffee. But if something comes up, which it always does, then you have time to actually deal with it, and you're not going onto Facebook and saying, well, I had a problem, but BirdDog, nobody was there to answer my call, and blaming us for your emergency. Poor planning is really not my problem, but look, we want to help you. We just plan better. If you plan better, that would be great. Nathan says, I do have a question. Does BirdDog have a sales rep to show off BirdDog products? And does BirdDog work with a company to integrate BirdDog products to work with their systems? And if not, does that company need to find a third party to fulfill that purpose? Good question, Nathan. The answer to that, sorry, I'm getting to your question so late. That was like 30 minutes ago. Yes, we do have sales reps. hello@birddog.tv. Here, let me do you one better. These guys over at this channel, hello@birddog.tv. This is our pre-sales team in the US, but also around the world. So we got a guy in Europe. We got a guy in South America. We got a guy over in APAC. We've got somebody in France. We've got somebody in the UK specifically, and the Nordics specifically. So like those are their people. Those are who they're selling to. These guys out of this department are some of the coolest and best sales guys I've ever had a pleasure of working alongside and interacting with. And so I can't say enough good things about them. They're a great team. They're interested in getting the proper solution for you and talking reality, not talking pipe dreams. Okay. So they're not going to sell you a bunch of features that don't exist. They're going to tell you what you can do today with BirdDog stuff. And, yeah, they're great. This team is awesome. So get in touch with them first. If you're here in the US, with a name like Nathan, it could be anything, I guess. But if you're here in the US, there are a handful of distributors and guys that I could point you directly towards if you want to talk about integrating with other systems. Absolutely. But yes, there are some options there when it comes to getting yourself kind of off the ground before the sale happens. You kind of, map it out a little bit. Also, don't forget that Netgear email address, which I have right here for your reference. proavdesign.netgear at netgear.com. These guys also, I've worked with them in a couple of instances. A+ service. They want to help you with your network, especially your Netgear stuff. So reach out to them. Quality dudes. All right. And I've had only good experiences emailing that channel, and I got the answers I was looking for from my questions very relatively quickly. Like, within a few days, I was having a good conversation. And then I did the thing every ticketing agent hates and added more questions to my queries, and they were able to handle it handsomely. So that ProAV email is definitely worth checking out. Symmetric was better for TCP because every TCP packet in general generates an equal number of acknowledgement packets. Correct. The UDP is spray and pray. A buddy of mine bought a Panasonic Curio switcher only to realize that it only supports 4 NDI SRT inputs, but unlimited SMPTE 2110. Interesting. That's interesting. It just seemed like they were not super excited about the NDI function of their camera. Did it not? I don't think it's their focus. I don't think it's their focus, but I could be wrong. Hey, your Logitech K480 keyboards can work with multiple devices, just in case you're still looking. I'm not, because I bought a $10 switcher, USB switcher, to unify a single keyboard with 2 machines. The problem is, the reason why you're hearing the little notification, which I'll figure out how to turn off somehow, is that I was switching between the computers and pressing the button, and it's like keyboard is now attached. And so then the keyboard would become active. And then when I disconnect from it and switch back to the Mac, then it plays the disconnect sound. So sorry about that during the webinar. I'm sure that was really annoying. But yeah, there's some compromises you get by watching my show. I'm just gonna throw that up there. Oh, I remember the satellites. So this was the Unify satellites. Point-to-point wireless doesn't help with the roving camera across the football field. That's true. It doesn't. That'd be a really long Ethernet cable. No, it was good when I left. It's probably off somewhere running a 10K. Yeah, that's Brayton's, the reference to where Brayton is. I think he's got his feet up in Florida somewhere, but good for him. He needs a break. He just did like a crazy. I won't go into the details, but he just completed an insane project that took him a month. So by all means, bud, go put your feet up. You deserve it. Can BirdDog write their software responsive so they look better? So BirdDog looks better? I'm assuming that you're saying you want cam control to use sockets so that it's more responsive than it currently is. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. I know that we worked really hard on the way that the cameras spoke to the things that were listening to the settings. We've done a lot in terms of how the web UI reflects that. Like if you'd make a change, for example, in cam control, does it show up on the web UI without refreshing the page? So that would be a use case of sockets needing to be used. And I don't know what they've done, but anyways, 5G wireless, how to lose a lot of money fast. Time keeps on slipping into the future. Oh, great. Now I'm going to have a song stuck in my head while we finish up the show. I'll have that BirdDog play tomorrow. Do I need to do a firmware update before I play with it? No, it should come with the latest installed. But if it doesn't, let me know. Reach out to us at help@birddog.tv. We'll give you a hand. It should have 107 or 108 installed on it. That's the latest. That 108 was the one that we had at the factory when they started shipping. So that should be the one that's on there. So here's something. But yeah, there is no firmware update. There's nothing posted on the website yet because it's not there yet. So it should be on the latest and the only one we have, which is 108. So the hardest part is I'm scratching my brain at what NDI even is and how I have to try and explain that to the people that call me the IT guy. I'm not an IT guy. Welcome to the one-man band show. I have been there many times in my life. And, at churches I've gone to, at schools I've gone to, at IT departments I've belonged to. Yeah, you're learning new stuff all the time, right? And you're the expert when really you know full well that you're not the expert, or you don't feel like the expert. So I feel your pain a little bit there, Nathan. If I were to explain it in a nutshell with BirdDog NDI, I would say NDI is a protocol that we can use to turn video into network data or ones and zeros and send that across that network and get it out the other side as fast as possible. And BirdDog specializes in full NDI, so it requires high bandwidth, but it's low latency. And NDI HX is high latency, but low bandwidth. And so if you don't have a great network, HX is a good way to at least get the video over there. The problem is it's going to be way out of sync with what's actually happening in front of the camera. So, you trade off certain things. But the beautiful thing is the if you go with the bird dog option, my iPad's about to die. Just that, which is totally fine. It can die. But if you go with the bird dog flavor, then it you have high bandwidth requirements, but you get the lowest latency, and you can run your productions in wherever the network is. And so it's a sweet versatility. It allows you to be a one-man band in many capacities, because I can run 5 cameras all at once, and I can call presets and move them around. It takes a while to get used to and set it up, but once you know, then you can do a multiple camera production all by yourself. Like, there's nobody producing this show. Eventually someone might need to. But there's nobody producing the show but me right now. And when I start having people in and interviewing them in person and doing that sort of stuff, then for sure we'll maybe go to that platform. But for now, yeah, it's a one-man band. I set up the network all by myself. Everything network based is my design in this office. And it works really well. So spent a lot of time working on this show recently, making it something worth watching. I hope you guys feel like it's been worth your time. GoWeb is there and still here. That's good. I'm glad you stuck around, GoWeb. You're like going into the night over there, aren't you? So bravo. 2.5 hours into a show. Responsive is a web methodology that changes the screen when the size changes. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tom. So we've done some of that, where with cam control in particular, where you can size the screen down. If it's full screen, I think you get all 3 or 4 cameras. I think it's 4 cameras full screen. But if you make it any other responsive size, it changes to 3, and then it goes down to 2. That was a recent development and scaling. So we have an issue, for example, with some of our legacy software. When you put it on a 4K screen, it looks like really jacked up. And so, yeah, that, like, a lot of the development was made under the assumption you're going to run 1080p screens. And that's probably not a great assumption anymore now that 4K is everywhere. But and it's not even really required. So 4K is not required for most applications. But now that it is readily available and it's out there, we probably should look into that. I do know that BirdDog is considering heavily going to service-based software and not executable software. So you could run a service, launch it on a web UI, access the programs that you want. I don't know where they are in that conversation about making that a reality. But we see it as a reality now with Central Plus, the new 2.0 version of Central. And it works really well, because I can run this service on this studio machine, which is actually halfway decent. It doesn't chew up the CPU, but it keeps it does all the things that I need it to do when I'm running it. And then I can go in my office and manipulate Central from a web UI. So it's super nice. Like, really, it's a good positive step forward if that's what we're going to do with our products, with our software products. Moving to a service-based oriented platform has a lot of advantages, because now you don't have to run it locally on the machine that you're using. You can run it on a high-powered server in a server room and access it from a web UI on a low-powered device, right? So yeah, that's cool stuff. Responsive designs to adjust the resolutions. Yeah, gotcha. Someone posted on the Facebook group that he couldn't shrink it small enough. Hey, thanks for answering my questions. I'll be reaching out to you guys. This would be a state thing. So yeah, so definitely reach out to, especially like pre-sales conversations, reach out to Hello. My support guys are at the help address, and that's usually post-sale stuff. But for sure, start the conversation, man. They'd love to have it with you, and they can get it kind of going. Yeah, GoWeb is almost at midnight. So hopefully Sanaya is off to bed at this point, and probably your wife as well. And you're staying online just to say you did it. I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. Any news on Silicone 2? That's why you're hanging around. So no news yet that I can share that I know of. Nothing yet on the Silicone 2 movement, but I do know that it is a high priority. So I can tell you that it's still very much so at the top of our brains. I do know that Zoomtopia just happened, and BirdDog was there at a booth capacity, but also like Eamon and Dan were there along with Jake, and so they've been gearing up and ramping up for that. That was part of the crazy project that Brayton was up to recently. So Zoomtopia just wrapped up this week, and so those head honchos from the company, Dan and Eamon, they're now stateside for a few weeks, and then they head back shortly thereafter. Doesn't sound like they're going to make it to Auburn Hills, which is a bummer because I love those guys and I'd love to see them more. But they are doing big things in the name of Bird Dog, and I'm pretty excited to hear what happens from their trip this time around. So all good. Hey Nathan, thanks for coming to the show. I don't know if this is your first time here. I don't recall you be talking to us previously on the show, so this is your first time. Thanks for hanging out with us. I really appreciate that. And if you are new, this goes for anybody. If you're new to the show, you just stumble upon us, head over to birddogjohn.tv and hit subscribe on that YouTube channel. That's where we do everything out of this support office. It at least goes there. So if I do a special, if we do something on this channel, something else, if I do support videos, it goes there for sure. It also goes on to various other places. But if you want to know the content from this show, from this studio, from this microphone, it's all going to show up on birddogjohn.tv. So that's where you can subscribe there. You can also look up the Bird Dog TV YouTube page. It's the green Bird Dog logo, and that's all of our marketing gear and all of our promotional stuff. All of that goes on there. So if you want to subscribe to them, also a good place to subscribe. So what is it? Hit the like and notification bell or whatever. Yeah, if you like this sort of stuff, help us hit that like button on YouTube. That would help me out greatly too. We're trying to just grow the channel so that we can do some stuff with YouTube. Now they've introduced hashtags, and so I've applied for one of those. But birddogjohn.tv, brought to you by a guy that I haven't seen in a while, Beep Chirp. He is a user on here, and he gave us a DNS redirect when I was a small channel. I mean, it's still kind of small, only like 100 subscribers. But when we were just starting out over on Twitch, he hooked me up with that DNS redirect. So we're benefiting from his generosity, that's for sure. Good stuff. Hey, great stuff, John. It was great to show people how this is all used with actual show event issues, especially the LEDs on-site networks, which was never truly tested until we get on site. Just have to do so much prep and pre-test to test your gear. Agreed. There is so much of it. Like, I think you save money by taking 2 hours and setting up your gear in your shop before you go to the show, right? Because you're not spending then time that is at the venue. You're not wasting your time setting that up when you could like be shaking hands with other people that are at that venue that might have you come and do stuff for them. Or especially if you're organized, like you show up and you're just organized, you plug in, you boot up, you put the band-aids on, you fix the little things that are wrong, and then you can go around and be like, yeah, we're going to stream this, like watch it afterwards if you like it. Here's the writer for what it is that we do, or whatever. You could be using your time better, not doing the technical things at the venue, but like networking with the people that are there. So a different type of networking, but not IT networking. So yeah, you could, it would pay in spades. Something that surprised me about Tuesday's show was Glenn said something like, the Netgear switch has saved millions of dollars in stuff because they're not troubleshooting when they get to the venue. They're not spending a lot of time trying to figure out what's going on. They're not, like he was listing off these ways that the Netgear 4250 AV switch has saved well beyond the value of the switch, has saved the day and saved money and saved all sorts of things, that are money wasters. And a lot of times we don't think about that, right? Like we think about like, oh, I can do this on the cheap and get away with it and make some money and maximize my profits. But it's like, yeah, but if you invest in good quality equipment, like an RE20 microphone, for example, if you invest in good quality equipment, it elevates lots of things. And yes, it saves you your time, but it like makes you more credible, and it gives you like, I don't know, it's just a better overall experience, and that stuff has monetary and non-monetary value. It's worth considering. So hey, can you do a multicast settings demo next time? I can certainly show you my multicast setup, but literally on the 4250, it's the it's the NDI 5 profile, which is already pre-configured for multicast, and then turning your cameras to multicast. That's literally the setup for Bird Dog. So yeah. Yeah, need a screenshot feature. A screenshot feature. Oh, phone's ringing. But since then this has grown into something bigger. Interesting. Good to know. Hey, buddy guy. Hey, do any of your clients use Bird Dog cameras with the 3D protocol with zero density Unreal Reality engine? Well, we saw it showcased at NAB this year. It was being used. We didn't have a lot of time to have sales and support actually like walk through the setup and ask the questions and all that. So that was unfortunate because I would have liked to have some time with the Unreal guys to actually find out the nuts and bolts of things. And the 3D function is listed as a beta feature. And so there's not like training, or there's not like, it's there to be used and tested, but it's not, I wouldn't say that it's like production ready, I guess. So it's just why we leave the beta label on that feature on the camera. So it's not like officially baked in, but it is there available if people want to play around with it. So I don't necessarily know of clients that are using the 3D stuff in their regular show, but I don't have exposure to that like the sales guys would. And so if you're looking for use cases, you might want to head over to hello@birddog.tv and find out if that's if they have any use cases over there where people are using that function. They would probably know better than I would, well, if they know of one person, they know better than me, because I don't know anybody that's using it in a live production scenario. But Jake and CJ might know, or Ian might know somebody that's using 3D in that capacity. So, all right, I actually made it to the end of the comments section, which is unbelievable because that was a really long show. This is probably going down as one of the longest shows that I've done in the past 2 years. I mean, I used to do a 3-hour show and just talk about products and be available, but I would also like sit there and answer tickets and like just wait for people to ask me questions. This was long ago when I was doing this show out of my house in my office at home, but you are very welcome, buddy guy. But this probably goes down as one of the longest shows I've done of recent, easily within the past 2 years. So since we came to this office, it's almost been 2 years since we moved in here. We moved here in January of 2020. So wait, that's not right. Yeah, is that right? It's 2022, so that would have been January 2021. Right. Okay. I always feel conflicted when doing a show because some clients like seeing a lot of equipment and cables because it justifies all the money that they spent, and others admire how everything can be done with a single tiny box. It's true. I mean, it would be better to have like slick. Me personally, I think value comes in being organized and ready to go and confidence in what you're doing, and like there's a lot of value in that. It's like, yes, we are, we're not the cheapest, but you didn't hire me to be the cheapest. You hired me to get great quality. And so the quality comes from I've established this workflow over years. I've been a part of communities that enable me to do better at my job and all that. And so, it's a good, I think that there's more value than maybe is initially perceived, because it's like, where's all your gear? It's like, actually, we've got it to a place where we have this down to maximize, best quality, minimal equipment. And I don't know, I think that goes a long way, being organized, having very, few cable runs, all of that. There's value in all of that stuff. So good stuff. But I do understand that conflict. Hey, thanks for being here. You are very welcome, Go Web. It's probably time for bed, man. You've stayed for the whole long haul, and so I appreciate that. And I'm going to wrap it up because it's 1:30 in the afternoon, and it's after 1:30 in the afternoon. But thanks for hanging out. That was fun. It was fun to watch the little webinar. And I think next week I'm going to try and talk to Jake and have him on the show. I was going to do that today, but I'm kind of happy that fell through because this would have been a longer show than 3 hours. So good stuff there. But I probably need to go back and make sure that these guys are functional out there. So all good. thank you so much for sticking around. There's still a handful of you in the chat, and so that is really cool to see. Hopefully you have found this conversation beneficial. It is Thursday afternoon, and so yeah, have a great weekend. It's going to get chilly here in Michigan in the next few days. So I think our warm fall is now over, and we're headed into the colder portion of the year. So wish us luck. We're going to be into the 30s and 40s over the next couple of days, and then that is staying that cold for the foreseeable future. So wish us luck here in Michigan. I should get like an outside camera going. I mean, the blinds are right there. I could just point a camera outside so that you guys can see what sort of weather we're dealing with. But yeah, we're looking forward to moving into the holiday season. Just a heads up, by the way, we are closed on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It's probably a half day at least, and then through so that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday we're closed, and we'll be reopened again on the following Monday here in the U.S. To be specific, let's speak accurately here. So that would be the 23rd. We would reopen on the 28th, just FYI. And then the week after Christmas, so Christmas is on a Sunday this year, and so we'll probably be closed a half day or on the 23rd, the Friday, and then we will be closed the following week, and we'll reopen again on the 3rd of January. So we will be closed for a week and a couple of days during the holiday season at Christmas time. That's to let my guys go home, be with their families, and celebrate the season. And then we'll be back to work on the 3rd. But there are going to be some gaps in support, and you should know that. You should know that there won't be any responses to tickets and that sort of thing. So they may be building up a little bit, and then it's going to take us a little while to catch up. And so give us a little bit of grace. Of course, I'll be here on the Tuesday of the week of Thanksgiving. And then when we return, it'll be have a Tuesday, Thursday show. And then that week of Christmas would be we'll probably miss the 27th and 29th show, but we will do something on the 20th, 22nd, and then again on the 3rd, we'll come back. So we'll only miss a couple of shows there. So yeah, just FYI, that's going to be something that'll happen coming up in the new year, or coming up the rest of this year. We've got some holiday time spent, so should be exciting stuff then. But we'll plan to come back on Tuesday. Baller's not a huge fan of the cold weather that's coming, so I totally understand that, man. But it's here, and we better embrace it, or we'll just be bitter. So, and I don't want to be bitter and embrace it, so might as well lose one of them. But yes, feel free to hit me up at birddogjohn.tv. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Please subscribe to that channel. That would help me out. Like this webinar review. If you want more of this sort of stuff, yeah, hit that like and subscribe and ding that bell for notification. I don't know what this spiel is. Anyways, but thank you so much for coming along. Really appreciate that. And we will see you guys really soon. Next week on Tuesday is the plan for the next one. And so hopefully you can join us then. We'll maybe do a little snacks on stream on Tuesday. Bring that back, because we haven't done that for a couple of days now. So we'll bring that back, and we will go from there. Be well. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll see you on Tuesday at 11. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Resistance is futile.